Alright guys, what is going on? Hopefully you guys are having an amazing evening, and we are here to make that one even better with the UBL draft stream. I've been looking forward to this stream for a very long time. I'm really hyped about the D-League, and I hope you guys are as well. Just as you guys can see in the Twitch chat, you can use the exclamation mark UBL to get all the UBL links, go into the UBL Discord and whatnot, and you can use the exclamation mark and then the mascot of any of the coaches. Of course, you will see the coaches team on the screen in just a second, so you can all know that and get the links to their respective channels as well. But I'm not going to do this draft stream alone. I'm going to be joined by one of the coaches, which I am going to unmute right now because muting people is very rude. So there we go. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, what is up, my little Danos and UBL fans? Vebs is here, your coach of the Helsinki Hydreikas, and hopefully all of you are having a fantastic start to the 2019 and are looking forward to the first ever UBL D-League. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and I'm gonna be one of the coaches, and I'm gonna be just saying that I'm really hyped for this and really looking forward to the upcoming season that we are having.
Yeah, for sure. Couldn't agree more. And also, just a little side story for you. This is your first Wi-Fi league, which you're going to do, as is it for some other people, I believe, in here. So we're going to see some new talent here. So definitely, like I said, once the teams are on the screen, be sure to use those exclamation marks with the mascot, so you guys can check out any team following the UBL. And I think with that, maybe you guys enjoyed the GDA's draft stream. Maybe you came from there, but we're just gonna give you more content, like 2 streams in one day. It doesn't get better than that, right?
Yeah, and for sure, and especially compared to the GPA for their upcoming season, we are still doing a Ultra Sun and Moon and in Wi-Fi. So if you're still looking forward to those kind of leagues, we are gonna be providing that for you in the meantime as well.
Yes, for sure. We're gonna keep the Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon hype going. But without further ado, let's just jump in to the draft order, and also going to explain a little bit here about the format. Of course, you can see the draft order at the left, and again, use those exclamation marks. Like I'm going to do one in the chat right now. If you use exclamation Helsinki, I think I spelled your team name wrong. Maybe you should do that.
God damn it, AutoMatthic.
It's not my team.
The one team you needed to get right. The one team. Your co-host, and you couldn't get it right.
Anyways, you can see, for example, exclamation mark Slow Bros, High Dragons, Razor Winds, Stoutlands, basically just the team mascot every single time. We'll give you the social link to the coach, so be sure to check that out as well. And there we go, there's the good one. You can also
okay, at least you got your own things going on, that's great.
Yeah,
okay.
there we go. Our entrance, there they are. So that's how this works. The draft format is a standard tier format, which you guys are used from, actually starting from ORAS. This has been what the draft community has been using, and what we're going to do, so we're going to draft 1 tier 1, 1 tier 2, 2 tier 3s, 1 tier 4, 1 tier 5, a Mega Pokemon, which will either give you no bonus points at all, so you can grab it for free, or you can get bonus points if you draft a lower one. And there's one exception this season, which was different last season. We have Mega Maw allowed this time around, but that one will actually cost you points. So if that's for the grab, but again, it comes with a cost. And then 4 free picks with 400 free points, and you can buff those points up with a Mega or not. So that's basically how it's all gonna go. Draft order, everything's there. I think I've mentioned everything, unless you want to add something, but we're going to jump into the first picks.
Yeah, and also there's going to be C captaincy change compared to the UBL Season 2, but we are going to be coming back to that as the stream gets more further, but just keep that in mind as we go.
Yeah, for sure. It's not a Z-type anymore as last season. People kind of like Z-caps, but again, we'll go over that later on. We're not going to bother with that right now. But instead, we're going to jump in to the very first pick. And, I mean, it's getting standard at here, but there we go. There is your
Oh, what do you mean, Matt? What could ever go first overall in any kind of draft league? What? Tapu Koko goes first overall. This is unheard of.
Yeah,
how this did just actually happen. Yeah, this is a great. Well, to be fair, sarcasm aside, I can completely understand this going first overall. It's the by far most popular mon right now in Draft League format. And from my point of view and from some other people's point of view, they believe that this is the best mon in the Draft League format as of right now. Some people may still think that it may still not have earned that spot, but regardless, it's very common to see to go first overall. And for a good reason, gives you elite speed tier 130 immediately off the bat, and a fairy typing, which are two critical things to have in your draft, and a lot of different kind of versatility, and provides you the best momentum gainer in the game with, like I said, with great versatility, which provides to you a lot of good things and beneficial of a first round pick what you want to have.
Yeah, and like I've mentioned this a few times before, and I think you can definitely agree with that. Coco is a pick where you cannot really go wrong. Like it does what Coco does. And moving on, something which you can go wrong with, but a pick I definitely approve of myself. My round 1 pick last season, Celesteela, going to the South Lake Swampards.
Yeah, this is a mod that no one really wants to go up against. Every single time you get to see it, unless you're picking it yourself, you hate seeing it going. And it's by far like the best steel type that is available. Besides, maybe Mega Mobile can now be a very good rival for that position. But to me, it's still the best steel type in a format, and definitely a top 3 mon in Draft League format.
No competition. This is the best steel type. Like all around in what it offers, but offensive set, defensive sets, really hard to prep for. But also one mon you really have to watch out for when you are going to draft. You don't want to put that Celesteela in that defensive spot every single week. So that's something that these Swampers will have to watch out for. But anyways, let's go.
It's similar to Mew in that sense. You want to have a versatile team around it, and then be able to use this mon itself as well as versatile as possible, because it can be, like you said, in a lot of different sets and be very successful with them.
For sure. And speaking of good steel types and newly allowed, the Chicago Shaymin-Sky is picking up that Mega Marvel. Of course, it is going to cost them 20 of their free points, but totally worth it in my opinion. This thing is the best wall breaker probably.
Yeah, it has 5 more base attacks than Mega Medicham, and both of them basically having the pure power or huge power, which is basically the same ability in itself with a different name, which gives them double attack stat. And Mega Marvel is insane. Like, it has one of the best, if not the best, dual typings in Steel and Fairy. And Player Off and Ironhead are going to hit a lot of things very hard, and it has the perfect coverage basically to hit anything else that it cannot hit with its dual stab. And Sucker Punch mind games will be a thing. And one thing hindering it's base speed stat, and that actually does make it that you have to support it properly with trick room setters, momentum gainers, to be able to utilize it to come in for free, and having ways to play around its only kind of a weakness that makes it being able to allow in a league, or we want to test it out this season.
Yeah, but the same goes like for Celesteela in the previous pick. You have to patch around, you have to draft around it, and same for Mega Model. But again, we have a whole draft in front of us, so I don't think that shouldn't become a problem at this point. It's not like Mega Model was picked up on a team that was there. Yeah,
it's definitely still worth for picking early on, and it was kind of expected because it's gonna be quote-unquote new toy hype. And it's great to see going, and exciting to see how it's going to perform.
And next one, something you already mentioned, same story as always, Mew. And please, dude, when I see Mew going, especially when you pick it, it's 4 pick, I think, per ad, don't force this thing into the default role. That's literally, I'm going to do power rankings. This is all I'm asking you. Don't force Mew in that role.
Yeah. Even though, like, Mew, arguably still defensive sets are the best sets of Mew.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But that's something that you don't want to rely on too often, because people are going to figure it out and play around it properly. But if you're able to draft similar to Celesteela, for example, if you're able to allow it to be as versatile as possible, and on a team building as example, if you're able to every single week slap it as your last one of your team and start figuring out completely outside of the box, like, okay, what kind of Mew I could build with this time around, what kind of set could do a lot of work. And that kind of position you need to have this mon for, so it's really up to the hype that it has in Draft League format, and it still deserves it. It's a very good mon, and arguably a top 5 mon in Draft League format, and definitely worth a 4th overall.
Yeah, for sure. And I think indeed, like, even though defensive Mew sets are probably the best, you still have to deal with the potential of there probably something being a nasty plot set or a sword stance set or anything else. And in that case, you don't prep for that. And when it hits you, because it is not forced into the defensive role, it goes hard. It goes hard. But another thing, like, I've been only seeing picks I agree with so far round 1. We have Jirachi going here, and I'm a huge fan of Jirachi myself. It's versatile as heck. It's not as versatile as Mew, but when I have to prep for Jirachi myself, I find myself in a spot where I just don't know for what set to prep for. You have to prep for so many different things. It can do a lot. And of course, we all know the flinch Jirachi set, but like that's just the top. That's just the top of the iceberg. Like it's annoying, but this thing can do so much more. And if you free it up and let it be that pivotal role, same as with Mew, you have your team of 5 every week, and then as a last effort, you put in Jirachi with the 100 stats across the board, with the move pool, with the utility it offers. It can be a phenomenal asset to your team.
Yeah, and like the chat mentioned also, the cool option that the Jirachi has compared to other mons, it has its signature move Doom Desire, which I do hope that we get to see throughout the season and used effectively, because it's something that a lot of people tend to forget and have hard time to filling into its move slot, because it has a 4-move syndrome with its wide move pool. But when you have a Jirachi, you have a way to win every single game, depending on what set you run. It can be doing so many things, and just can turn itself game around with its Serene Grace ability.
For sure. And next I'm going the second Mega Pokemon. We have Mega Marwa going, but the one that's actually not gonna cost points here, Mega Charizard X, which I personally think is early for Zard X, but if Zard X is a mon you want, it's probably gone by the next time it comes back to you, so I can get this. But it's let me say it like this: if this is a mon you enjoy and a mon you have full faith in, then Zard X is very scary to face.
Yeah, and it's a mon that it's similar to some other mons which we are gonna be seeing drafted, that it's a lot scarier on paper than it's gonna be in practice, and how efficient it's gonna be in practice comes along with how well the coach uses, like you mentioned. And it's a mon that it definitely might be a surprise to go this early, but you can see the point of view in a sense that if you really wanted to use this thing, you definitely want to pick it early on, because there's no guarantees it's going to be there in round 2.
Yeah, for sure. And there we go, the next dragon going, Zygarde, which, again, we're late round 1, so I can definitely see this going right now. I mean, do we even have to tell what Zygarde does? Like, it adds a whole new dimension to the game with 1000 arrows. Has some good setup options here. Does kind of lack Dragon Stab, and no, I don't count Outrage. That's just me. But very solid pick, I think, at this point in the draft where we're at and what was left.
Yeah, I mean, he got just a recently bumped Uber's mod with what pick?
8,
I think
9,
it's
something?
Pick. Yeah, it's like 7th pick or something, so I guess it... Well, jokes aside with regards to what happened in Smogon, so I got 50%. It's one of those mons regards to the Charizard X that I do see it being a round 1 pick, but I personally would have maybe picked something else in this position, which I do believe that are better mons still available. But if the coach really wanted to give it a try, it's worth to go in round 1, because there's no way it could have made it to him in round 2, so I can understand the thought process behind it, and it's a very cool mon to try, and it has no drawback move in 1000 arrows, which is gonna be annoying for some teams always to deal with.
Yeah, like a lot of teams don't have good ground resist. They draft some immunities, but that's it, and that's where your Zygarde comes in and just clicks Choice Band 1000 arrows and it's an issue for you.
Yeah.
Next up, it's a pick that you probably... I wouldn't do this round 1. Zapdos, but
yeah,
I know you like them all, so maybe you're better explaining why this could be a round 1 pick.
This is one of my personal favorites to use in Draft League format. It's very reliable mon, great dual typing, defensively wise, electric and flying, and just overall it's naturally very strong mon. But I do agree, because we are only having 10 people draft, and considering the mons that are still available at this point of time and we are gonna see going later on, maybe not the best pick in that regard to go with, but I can understand the progress if you really want him on. And something like Japdos, there's always a risk that it could have gone in round 2, and it's going to be a mod that I can assure to the coach that it's very reliable and it's very easy to bring a lot of games and be easy to just plug in and do whatever set you would like to. And static and pressure are 2 great abilities to have, and having reliable recovery in Roost, it can be so obnoxious to take down and hit surprisingly hard, which makes it even more annoying to deal with because you have to find your ways to play around it.
Yeah, for sure. It's not a bad Pokemon. I'm just questioning it as an, where we're at, 8 overall pick?
Yeah, it's 8 overall pick, so it's kind of not the strongest option at the time, but I can understand if you really wanted it that, you might as well take it.
Well, I can get into your pick though, Lando G at almost the wheel.
Yeah, the fact that I get this mod at 9th overall, and I'm gonna be saying this tomorrow in my draft analysis, hint hint, check those out when they go up. But this mod is a top 3 mod in draft league format, right? Period. When you give this a potential C captaincy, it's medicine to go up against. It's so versatile. Ground typing is one of the hardest typings, like we mentioned early on about Zygarde 50 to switching to. And Landorus having potential C captaincy options which he can utilize. There aren't many defensive responses to this thing, and you can do so many different sets with it. Giving a stealth rocket off the bat, giving a ground immunity off the bat, as well as the electric immunity, and the setup options, choice scarf option. Even a defensive pivot can be very strong with having access to momentum move like U-turn. I was heavily surprised this was available, but I took only 2 seconds once I saw this. I was like, yep, I know my first pick, and I'm gonna be running with it and be very happy about it.
Yeah, for sure. This is like arguably the best mod in the format, depending on who you ask. So I for sure can get into that.
Yeah, it's in that conversation. So being there at 9th overall was just mind blowing to me.
And then we're getting at the wheel, and we're starting that off with Quicktini. Also, we talked about wall breakers. This thing is absolutely one of the better wall breakers we have in this format. 10th overall pick. I can't see, but I would personally not have done that. But looking at this guy being at the wheel, it's not going to make it back to him by any way. So if you want your Victini, which is a phenomenal mod in the format, you grab it indeed. You grab it now.
Yeah, and I'm actually happy to see. I feel like there's been a small trend what I have followed that people started to give it another go yet again in this generation, because I felt like it was a little bit of overlooked throughout Generation 7, and now it's been picked a little bit more popularity, and for a good reason. It's really annoying to go up against because you never know exactly what kind of set it's gonna do, and it has the perfect coverage to hit its defensive counters on the right turn. So it's a very strong mod, and like you said, being a wheel pick, you have to strategize yourself. What do you actually want, and what do you need to prioritize and pick them early on? And that might be something that shows throughout the draft, throughout the people who are in the wheel picks, that how they are drafting.
Yeah, and something like you said about Victini yourself is that you don't know what Victini does. Indeed, you don't know what's going to run. The only thing you know is that it's going to break your team. Like, that's how crazy this is. And he's actually going to pair it up with another wall breaker here in Hydreigon, which is your mascot.
This one hurt. I was so hoping that it should still make to me, because I was heavily considering picking this mod, because obviously it's my mascot, my favorite mod. It would have been so much fun to use on Wi-Fi. Here it's awesome cry whenever it hits the field, but I love this mod. It has now access to defog after the move to what we gave in Generation 7. It's a great wall breaker on a special side. It has the options to go mixed. You can go with physical defensive set in certain matchups. You can go specially bulky. You can be Specs. You can be Scarf, Life Up. Whatever you want out of Hydreigon, you can basically get out of it. The only downsides are the speed tier of 98, which is a little bit lower than you really want to desire out of it, but you cannot have everything. And having a ×4 weakness to Fairy, but thankfully still we don't have Hidden Power Fairy introduced, so you always know what kind of mons can hit it with Fairy type moves, which is mostly the ones that it has to really be afraid of.
Yeah, and even for myself, like I've been really skeptical about Hydreigon in the past, but I enjoyed it a lot in the UBL. It also won me my first championship in the IPL Open afterwards. Like it saved my ass like factually 3 times. Like 3 times without Hydreigon, I would have lost that game. Which has really helped me.
It only took 3 years, people, to him realizing how great Hydreigon is. So we finally got through AutoMatthic, who had wanted to see Hydreigon actually being recognized as Bettermon that some people will not give it credit for. And speaking of not giving credit for, how did this thing last in round 2? How did this mon get forgotten by the other coaches in this league? And this was very easy for me to recover from Hydreigon's time when I saw this on the board, and it's similar to Landorus, and this is one of the top mons in Draft League format. And I took like 2 seconds to think about this. I was like, you know what, I'm having this. I already have the best ground type in Draft League format. Now I got myself the best ice type in Draft League format. I have access to 2 most intimidating offensive types in the game, and it's gonna be a lot of fun using Korean Black. It's gonna be interesting to see that which one I'm gonna end up having as a C captain, because this could also be a very strong option in that regard. And I'm causing a lot of headache for my future opponents to try to deal with these 2 on paper, because usually even already one of them is gonna cause a lot of over-centralizing prep, but now I have both of them, and I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, this is what I meant before with some of the picks. They aren't bad, but if you let a top 5 Pokemon in the format just sit there till, what pick are we at? We're at like 12 or something. Like, yeah, like, yes, your Zygarde is good. Yes, your Zapdos is good. Yes, your Zardex is good. This one's better. Like,
yeah, I do want to mention what Skyrander said, that I do feel like recently Korean Black has gone a little bit of downfall regards to its popularity. Some people may have got tired of using it, maybe not getting the results what they are expecting out of it. And I can understand that, bro, because it's not as easy to use as you may think at first. And thankfully for me, I have a lot of experience with this thing, so I have a pretty good idea what it needs to do or how you need to support it and what kind of position you have to put it for. But still, I cannot understand how this is in round 2 for me, but I'll definitely take it.
Yeah, and then moving on to the next one is the other variant of your Lander. Landorus Eye is gonna go to the Razor Winds. Of course, it cannot run Sheer Force in this league. Yeah, that's also why it is in tier 2. And I mean, the pairing with, you're starting to make some of an Ice weakness here, but again, we're 2 picks in. But you have 2 good default users right now. You add a Rock user. Landorus Incarnate is a decent wall breaker. The only thing I think is that this thing, just as with Zapdos, I think it probably could have been around the turn after, like the round after.
Yeah, it's also kind of something that I don't know how many people throughout this D-League actually know each other before joining this league. So it could come into play that people are picking a little bit earlier some ones that you're not used to, because you don't have any idea how other people are drafting. So this could be playing into that if this person happened to really want it, he wanted to secure it right now, and maybe he has good backup plans for the other things, like trying to find that water typing later on and the steel type later on, which you definitely need to have with these 2, considering the amount of ice weakness that he has going on.
Yeah, for sure. And then something which, again, I feel like I'm gonna say this too much. It's a bit early, but we're having Tangrowth joining Zygarde. But the one thing I do like very much about this pick is that Tangrowth is probably the best check to Zygarde we have. Like, besides Bulu, probably. Maybe like either Tangrowth or Bulu. And by grabbing one of them yourself alongside Zygarde, you just take the threat out immediately of ever having to deal with that with your own Zygarde. And in general, Tangrowth is a very reliable grass type in the format, which has been proven to work. Not that hard to prep with, and also opens the potential for regen core for this team right now.
Yeah, and the thing is that as a tier 3, it can show to be very valuable in a lot of people's eyes who are a big fan of Tangrowth. And considering how popular it is, it's something that you're prioritizing picking it now because you know you want it, and you're taking a check out of someone else's to have to your main first pick. And it's just, you can kind of make an argument that it's a little bit too early, but I see the thought progress, and some people may be using this kind of thought progress as we go along with the draft itself, that people try to pick the most that they really want and what they really need for their own reasons.
Well, here we have something that A-Drive is definitely agreeing with. I think I just stole your joke.
How did the draft format made here? Yeah. How did it last this far? Hold on, we need to get down here and kind of give us a explanation of why this is optimal. But sarcasm all aside and the jokes aside, it's a very nice pick with Charizard X, because Aurora Veil plus Charizard X. Oh boy, I'm not looking forward to that combo, and it's very underrated also offensively wise. It has the perfect coverage. Hit most of the things that would try to counter it, especially something like Dark Pulse is actually pretty clutch, because now it has the coverage to hit Psychic Steel types like Jirachi, for example, which we saw being taken, and Ice typing is just one of the best, if not the offensive types in the game. So besides the obvious addition what it provides with Alola Veil, Alola Ninetales can do a lot more work than we first think of it.
Yeah, I think people really sleep on it as a offensive threat. People just always think, oh, it's going to set the veil, but mainly A-Drive has shown in multiple leagues that this is a phenomenal offensive threat, and what you mentioned with the coverage, we have to be glad that this thing does not have a good special attack stat.
Yeah, you also had a little bit of trouble dealing with A-Specs Alola Ninetales last season, so you can speak for your own experience that if you don't have a good ice resist, it's going to demolish.
Yeah, for sure. And then we're going to move on to the Thunders, who's going to grab a little bit of thunder here themselves with Zeraora. It's relatively untested. We had it only allowed one season, and it's going to be paired up with Jirachi, which already gives you a Volturn option here, which is really great. But in general, it gives you speed, which is making sure that Jirachi hasn't to run Choice Scarf all that much. So it's a very solid electric type, and I can see it if you price-wise. I mean, I personally prefer the Thunderous forms, both of them, which is actually our mascot. But if you have other things in mind that you want to grab in Tier 1, I can definitely see this pick being there right now.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's Tier 2 and it gives you such a good speed tier in 143 base speed tier, if I remember right, that's such a valuable asset to have, because there's going to be a situation where a team is going to run into a awkward position that they have to start figuring out what kind of elite speed tier most they want to pick. And this was actually something on my radar as a round 3 pick, but I had a pretty good idea that it might go, considering it's a new toy and Tier 2 as its price. And a little bit of snipe might be having that sense, but you saw what I got in round 2, and I'm not upset about that at all. But Zeraora itself, it's gonna be cool to see how it's gonna perform. We haven't seen it too much. We had only Irish Emerald having it last season in UBL.
And then we're gonna move on to the next Mega Beam pick, Mega Altaria, which, pairing that up with Mew, gives you 2 phenomenally versatile Pokemon here to begin with. But again, watch out that you don't force them into certain rules you don't want to. I think that's the main thing this team has to watch out for at this point.
Yeah, but I do like to see Mega Altaria giving more opportunities, because ever since the nerf to pixelate ability and the aerialate and whatever, I feel like a lot of people kind of have sort of like overlooked this Mega, and it's very hard to also get most out of, because its speed tier is a little bit awkward to work with in base 80, and it doesn't have the power output anymore. But it has a very high ceiling if you're able to execute Dragon Dash sets on the proper matchup properly, and it can be very scary setup sweeper and a versatile mon alongside with Mew. So he has at least a lot of options between his first 2 picks, what he can do with them. Yeah,
for sure. And like Skyrim said in the chat, it's a really annoying Pokemon to deal with in general. So of course, physical special, everything is there. So gonna see how it does. But moving on to Chicago Shaymin-Sky, you are going to pair up Mega Marwa with Latias, which at first wouldn't be my dragon of choice, but I can see the Healing Wish potential into a late game Marwa with this.
Yeah, this is like, Latias are usually the most popular option what I have seen with Mega Mobile, because it basically provides what you want around it with your tracker. It gives you the ground immunity, and it gives you a very reliable fire resist as well. And personally, I would have picked Gladios because it would have gave her a very strong C captain option off the bat, because C Memento, I would say, is the better option than straight up Healing Wisp. But there's nothing wrong with Gladios itself too. You can still make it work, and it's a little bit more bulkier naturally, and it has very annoying sets that I want to see hopefully working out, unless it's versus me, which are Reflect type sets, and also Calm Mind storage power can be really annoying versus teams that don't have reliable dark type, or they're afraid to bring them because the Mega Marvel is on the roster. So I do see the synergy, and I do see the thought process behind it and support Gladius pick itself. Personally, I would have just picked Gladius over it.
Yeah, that's just personal preference. I can see this, the Healing Wish support here. Also, before we're going to move on to the next pick, I want to thank Quite Superior for the 1 bit you dropped there. Hopefully you have an awesome day and enjoy this draft stream as well. And I think this is something that this coach is definitely going to enjoy, pairing up Celesteela with Garchomp. And Garchomp is probably... I'm a bit biased here, but Garchomp is probably one of my favorite dragon types in this format, just for the speed just above 100, multiple roles it can fill, the damage output it has. Like, the only thing it's really lacking is Dragon Dance, but that would make it quote-unquote broken, which I'm not sure if that's something good to give to it.
Yeah, and I think Garchomp actually has gotten better in this generation, similar to Landerstein, because they really benefit from being a potential C captain, and to me, if I would be him, that would be my primary target for a C captaincy role, because that basically claims a kill in every single matchup, and it's very menacing without it as well, and very versatile dragon, and very good pair with Celesteela, and strong Dragon Fairy Steel Core is right up there for him.
Yeah, it's definitely in the making.
Only needs a fairy.
And looking at fairies that are there, like we still have we have Clefable still on the board. We have multiple Tapus there. We have Gardevoir, Mega Gardevoir. We have Mega Nancy still there. We have so many great options to round out the squad. I'm going to be curious what this coach is going to go for.
Mainly only the dragons have been taken, so picking the dragon that you still want to have from available to pair with this thing was good call from all drafters we have.
Yeah, and there we are at
this point.
At the next field, Tapu Koko going to be paired up with Ferrothorn here, which will of course give Tapu Koko a little bit of haste support to be even more annoying. One downside to this pick though is that, of course, both as your grass type, you don't resist ground, which of course Koko is weak to as well at this point. So that might be something you want to watch out for, but in general, it does provide maybe also some lead sheet recovery in general for Koko and whatnot.
Yeah, but I actually had this recently in NPL tryouts, and Ferrothorn was a decent option on paper because it does give you that steel typing, so it provides one of the weaknesses Koko has, which is the poison. And just having the hazard stacking options is going to be really nice because Tapu Koko is going to force so many switches, and getting that extra chip every single time it's capable of doing that is primarily the thing that I saw being the most, giving most upside of doing this kind of pick with Ferrothorn. So I can see the thought progress behind it because I haven't done it in the past, and I would think this is something that he was seeing through the Ferrothorn and why he wanted to have it.
And he is going to pair it up with Clefable, so there's one of the fairies going, which we talked about earlier. I'm definitely a fan of picking a actual, quote-unquote, actual fairy besides Tapu Koko, because Tapu Koko is mainly going to be your electric type in the role it fills, but adding Clefable, he would potential wishes into Ferrothorn as well. Like, slam a good dragon on this one, and we're getting some scary cores here in this team too, especially with the momentum of Koko on top of that.
Yeah, and just giving another stealth rocker for himself. Magic God and Unaware are amazing abilities. They can cause a lot of headaches already throughout the prep, and may deter people trying to bring a setup on if it's hard walled by Clefable. So it's a very versatile fairy type. Arguably, from pure, like, for fairy typing itself, if you're drafting it, Clefable might be the best one for that. And him having basically two of the best fairy types is going to be very annoying for other people who are still missing one.
Sure. And there it is, the core, man. I'm so glad I don't have to face this. This is nasty. This is honestly one of the best scores I've seen drafted ever.
Yeah, I have had this in a tournament once, but never in a draft league, and it's definitely something that I wish I would have had chance to be able to draft. And these first 3 picks are arguably the strongest ones we might be able to see after the third round has been finished. It's a very strong core. The Mega Diancie is phenomenal because with its dual stab, there is no drawback at clicking one of the moves. There's no immunities for both of them. It has the enough coverage to deal with its counters with Earth Power, for example, hitting Steel types, and Psychic for some bulkier Poison types, for example, and giving him already a second Stealth Rocker. So even if Celesteela didn't provide him Stealth Rocks as his Steel type, he still was managed to already get 2 Stealth Rockers with the following 2 picks. So very strong core. Gives him also a good speed here, 110, and a potential winning condition with setup.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely afraid of that team. Next pick though, Dugtrio. And Dugtrio being paired up with Mega Mala is something I can definitely get behind. Just to like get those Steel types out of there. There are no issues for your Mala anymore, and that's really great for this one. Also, besides the Healing Wish, you also now have a Memento user to again get in your Mala later on. If you give this thing Z access, it becomes Z Memento, which is even scarier. And the first rocker on this team as well, but you kind of want to watch out that this will not be your only one.
Technically, she does have 2 Stealth Rockers, but both of them are not as reliable. And one of the other things that I do like Dugtrio with Mega Marvel is that Marvel does have access to knockoff. So even if opponent tries to bring, like, I don't know, let's say Arcanine with Shed Shell to check Mega Marvel itself while not being able to be trapped by Dugtrio, all you need to do is to get rid of those Shed Shells with Mega Marvel, and this thing can really benefit from it and trap everything that she wants it to be able to do.
Definitely. And then something which is early, but it's definitely something which potential here with Trick Room Stack Attack are going to the Tyrantrums here, and maybe even besides Trick Room Stack Attacker, like you can even make a Mega Altaria work on a Trick Room late game if that's the plan you want to go with, but still something that it's a really good breaker here, but still requires setup, as in the same goes for Mew and Altaria. Like this team does require a turn or 2 before it's actually gonna start hitting hard, I feel like.
Yeah, but at least something that can go well for him is that even though he has first 3 picks which struggle with bulky Steel types, usually teams only have 1 Steel type on their team, so these 3 together can really pressure them, and hopefully for our coach's sake, maybe one of them is capable of getting that opening and really clean up the game when everything else has done the dirty work of weakening down these similar checks that these 3 potentially have to deal with. And Stagataka itself is a little bit underappreciated in some aspects, because well-played Trick Room Stagataka is scary to go up against, and it hits so hard with Cyber Ball and potential C captaincy option.
Yeah, for sure. And then going on to the Thunders again, who are going to pick up Tapu Fini. So the Fairies are kind of going this round, which you definitely should grab yourself one before they're all gone. But Tapu Fini, in some sense, I like it being paired up with Jirachi, and in another sense, I don't. But I still think the potential's there. That if you grab a good dragon around this, you still have 3 very solid mons for your basic core together with the momentum of Zero Aura. So basically what we said with the first team as well on the wheel, like if you get a good dragon at this point, you have your core plus good momentum.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I understand, like, you don't want to necessarily pair this with Jirachi, because if you rely on the secondary status or Thunder Wave or Body Slam or whatever, then it doesn't seem like a nice fit. But I do like the fact that Jirachi can support Tapu Fini itself with Wish Passing, and that's something that Tapu Fini, I feel like, it needs, so it can really function even better, because once you're able to knock off its leftovers, it has no way to recover itself. So being able to have Tapu Fini on your team and already have a very good potential Wish Passer can still work out for him well, and I can see the synergy through there.
Yeah, that's like I said, at one hand, and you named the 2 reasons, at the one hand I like it, at the other hand I don't, so it's gonna come down to how the coach is just going to execute. this in practice. And then another mon on the Totodile team who's going to pair it up nicely behind the Auroraville. We have Bishop, which I think again it's a bit early, but I can still definitely see the potential of Bishop under Auroraville together with Zardax being that offensive threat, and this team is gonna force some prep for sure at this point.
Yeah, I think the one aspect that I do like about this pick, not necessarily that when he picked it, because I do agree that this is very early pick for Bishop, even as a tier 3. But I do like the idea that he has a Defiant user, and probably one of the best Defiant users with Auroraville setter, because a lot of teams will try to use Defog to get rid of them. The other way how you can do it is Brick Break, so if
Brick Break works better versus this thing.
Yeah, that's the thing, that causes a mind games for both sides. If opponent relies on Defog, Bishop likes it. But if opponent uses Brick Break to get rid of them, well, Bishop doesn't like that. So it's an interesting concept in that sense, and we'll have to see how it's gonna work out.
And here is one pick which is, I agree a lot on this team together with Zygarde and Tangro, grabbing that momentum gainer of Greninja, which getting more speed tiers as well, which is really phenomenal, so you don't have to rely on Dragon and Zygarde all that much. Priority again, like you now have priority in extreme speed and in Water Circus, so you can hit on both offensive sides or defense sides, however you want to go around it, but definitely something I can see work well on this team. And round 3, if you can still get Greninja at this point, which it's the same as with Coco, what we said, Greninja has been phenomenally popular in the last few months, if not the past year. So I think, personally, I think this is the perfect round to pick it, but seeing at how early this thing goes a lot of the time, I think you should definitely be happy at sitting at the board at this point.
This was another mod that I was looking at potential elite speed here, because I think Greninja can provide that role really well with momentum, having access to spikes, having access to toxic spikes, both which can be really nice with his first pick being Zygarde. So I do definitely see the thought progress behind it, and it's a fun one for sure to try out. And I believe Skyrander never had really good chance to using it, so very solid pick, something that I was looking forward to, but we'll have to see that what I was able to pick as a replacement.
You know, the Racer Winds don't like your hazards.
Yeah, he's gonna defog everything away. He doesn't care about any kind.
I mean,
I do like this.
Bishop likes this team though.
Yeah, this is a solid pick in a sense that he does get a steel type with a recovery, which there aren't really that many, and Scissor can therefore function as a pretty decent ice resist. It does have to watch out for hidden power fires coming its way, because it's not as bulky as the Mega Evolution, obviously, but I really like the Volt turn core that he has going on with his first 3 picks, and Scissor is underappreciated in a sense that how annoying it can be to some teams to deal with it, because even if you have a defensive answer to it, you can just U-turn out of there and leave yourself in a bad position every single time, and just keep doing that with his first 2 picks can be very annoying to deal with.
Yeah, and also that Choice Bandit set with Technician and with the combination of Bullet Punch, U-turn, and with also Pursuit Trapping, which is really annoying with Scissor. And of course, one thing which might be appealing here is that Scissor is usually one of those monsters that is between Tier 1 and Tier 2. It fell in Tier 2 right here in this league, so I can definitely see the potential of this thing being a very good value pick for your Steel type in that sense. And then we're going to go to your pick, and I mean, I'm not even... How?
I want to know how. I want to know how I was able to pick Mega Lopunny in round 3, and Bunny and the Beast core is back. And in case you don't know what that reference is, it's basically my Mega Lopunny Green Black combo, what I have used several times in the past. And like I've been trying to hint throughout the stream, this wasn't my initial pick. At this point of time, I actually wanted Zeraora first and then Greninja. But you know what? Maybe it was just fate that this Mega fell to me and I was able to pick it. And the main thought progress was that my first 2 picks are relatively slow, so I wanted to make sure that the elite speed tiered mon that I'm able to get, I know I can rely on it and it's gonna function really well in that row. And Mega Lopunny is arguably one of the best Mega, if not the best, and one of the best revenge cures as well. And it can be straightforward, but it's very obvious what its counters are going to be, and then it's just up to myself as a coach who has it to play around those counters properly.
Yeah, and to me it's crazy that the best Mega in the format just sits around till round 3 and is being
I'll
paired
take
up with 2 top 3 mons in the format. Like, of course, you have your finding weakness here with like both your offensive mons, like Kieran Black, Megalopony being weak to fighting, but of course Lando can kind of deal with that, but it's patchable.
It's not the ideal resistance, and that's definitely something that I need to look after with my rest of the chart. But that's something that I can fix on later on, and just pick the best one available at this point.
Yes, for sure. And then we're going to pick up some more fairies here, because again, they're going fast, and you should wrap yourself one. So on the wheel, we have the Slowbros who are going to pick up Sylveon as their fairy type, which I've used it together with Hydreigon before, and I'm a really big fan of the core that is starting right here.
Yeah, and considering how many fairies we just see going, this could have been one of the best options available, and it's nice to pick Sylveon for yourself, because it's definitely one of those fairies that Hydreigon does not have good responses to deal with it. So that's gonna be a really nice fit, and Wish Passing can be also nice for a bulky offense approach, which this draft is kinda hinting towards too. And Choice Spec Sylveon can still hit hard in right matchups, and giving a little bit of momentum as well in dry bottom pass, and he already has 2 U-turners, so he has a lot of good things going on. Something that I wish to see is to start picking up the elite speed tier at some point, and maybe another remover besides Hydreigon.
Yeah, well, it's not going to happen on this wheel, because Slowbro is going to be paired up with this, which is not being picked up as much as it should, in my opinion. Like, I think Slowbro is a very reliable water type in the format, also a very reliable psychic type in this format, from a defensive point of view, that is. Reliable recovery, again, this is his first one without momentum here, but still, you have to set up potential even in Calm Mind, being annoying, and in general, you also open the ways to a Regenerator core later on in the draft if you want that.
Yeah, and basically what he was able to do in this will pick that first he picked his wall breakers, what he wanted to build around with, and now he picked up a very decent, or very good actually, defensive core between Slowbro and Sylveon if he chooses to use them in those kind of roles. So very solid start in the draft. All it needs now is removal and speed, and it can go a long ways for him.
And then, this is one of the pick which I can definitely agree with on your team, like, you need your dark typing, but you don't want another fighting weakness, and in that sense, Alola Muk is probably the best dark type left for you at this point.
Yeah, considering the dark types that were taken and which were available, Alola Muk was the best one for my team. There was also Crocodile still available in the same tier, but I already had Landorus, so to me this was kind of obvious choice that I wanted to pick Alola Muk, and considering the need that I had for it, I went for it already at this point of time. It may seem early for Alola Muk to go round 4, but this is where it kind of shows that some coaches at some point have to think about what they do actually need, and that's kind of what I went after. And it's gonna be a fun dark type to use, because not many bulky pure psychic types can deal with its dual typing and hit it relatively hard.
Yeah, it's definitely a very reliable on both steps, for both steps in general. And then we have Pokemon Club Defog right here.
Yeah, another one. Like he doesn't care about any kind of hazard stacking on its way, and this is
more about ground.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like he has 3 Crown Immunities and a Scizor, which is not even weak to it. So this does give him another ice weakness, but thankfully he does have Scizor, and assuming that he's gonna pick a bulky water type later on, that's something that is easily passed on. And this is probably his first really strong potential for a Sea Captain, and Latios is really good offensive Sea Captain, and Sea Memento can be also pretty nice with Scizor or Landorus in Cardiff, for example, if they are set up set. And just a very solid pick for sure, and probably one of the best dragons, if not the best dragon available on the table. So
yeah, for sure.
Can see this big pick being done, and around 4 Latios is good value.
Definitely. And then something, speaking of good value, one of maybe not my favorite anymore, I've used Coco recently, but definitely one of my favorite electric types there is, Thunderous Incarnate, and I'm becoming more and more of a fan of this team. It's definitely something I would use myself. You get yourself another momentum user besides Greninja. I used Thunderous and Greninja together on one team before. They work phenomenally well on that point of view, that getting those momentum between turns. And you get a Prankster user, Prankster T-Wave, Prankster Taunt. really important in that stuff as well. Hazard setting is there from your Greninja, like, and you can prevent the prank shot taunt, you can prevent defogging away those spikes or those toxic spikes, whatever you want to set up. U-turn Volt Switch, it can even run physical sets, even though most people prefer special for a good reason, but in my opinion, definitely one of the best electric types we have, and probably, in my personal opinion, this thing is number 2 besides Coco.
Yeah, it's number 2. It's between Zapdos or Thundurus incarnate. Both of them you can make a case for, but in general sense, I would agree that it's probably the second best, and it creates him a very good problem to have with his tier 1 picks, that both of them can be very solid CE captains, and similar to me, Skyrander will have a little bit of troublesome to try to think which one is going to be the better choice for.
Yeah, and one thing you have to keep in mind is that you also have 3 ice weaknesses right now, which you kind of have to patch on later in the draft.
That's definitely something that you will have to patch on later on, but similar to previous team, that there are good typings to cover that up. You just have to make sure you actually do it as well. And Skyrander was able to pick also very good speed tiers with his last 2 picks, so I'm a big fan of that.
And then moving on, we are going to add parting shot potential in Silvally to the Auroraville of Ninetales being abused by Zardex and Bisharp.
Yeah, Silvally as a tier 4 pick, I actually became bigger a fan of this mod than I used to be after I helped out Frosted in past season in the UBL, and she actually had it on her team, and I found newfound respect with team building with her and seeing how it was able to perform. And as a tier 4, I do think it's one of the better value picks, and just having that parting shot options with his rest of his team and giving that reliable defogger an option to run any kind of typing can be valuable asset for many matchups to come.
Yeah, for sure. And also one thing that is still something you want to watch out for is kind of the same which I said with Mew and Jirachi. You don't want Silvally either to be that defog, parting shot, toxic, multi-attack set every single week, but for Silvally as a tier 4, it's of course less of an issue than when it is your round 1 tier 1 pick.
Yeah, it's definitely something you can still manage with, and it's just a good value pick, which I can understand. It may seem early, but again, if you really want it and need it for your team, it's good to pick those early on if you have backups for the rest.
And this pick is something I am a huge fan of myself. We're going to see Crobat here at the Founders. Of course, Crobat giving more speed besides Zeraora, gives another defogger besides Finny. Versatile mon, although sometimes people don't really see it as one, but in this, I definitely like, as of round 4, round 5 pick, this is definitely out there as one of the very good pickups you can make at this point for this team as well.
Yeah, I love Crobat personally a lot. The only downside to it that personally I would draft another poison type, which is grounded, so toxic spikes won't be a problem. He does have Tapu Fini on his team, which can kind of deter their effect for certain point, and Jirachi is obviously immune to them. So it's kind of like one of those things that, depending on how he's weak to toxic spikes or not with his rest of the team, he may not have to pick another poison type. And Crobat gives you just elite speed here, and he already has 2 very fast mons on deck with Zeraora and Crobat, which he picked in previous 2 rounds.
And then next up, a Pokemon which I personally really like in the Draft League format, and also something which is definitely great if you can pick it up in round 4, Rodon Wash, which gives this team probably also gets away some defog pressure from Altaria and Mew. It is also the second momentum user besides Mew. Get some Pain Split, get your water typing in here, your ground immunity in here, which is probably good with Stack Attacker to get. And of course, Volt Switch, you get Stack Attacker in relatively free a lot of the time.
I like also how basically with Roto Was and Mew, he basically covers any potential weakness Taka has. So he's at least supporting that mon well, which allows him to use that mon even better success than you can without them. So I do like the fit on the team. Again, speed is going to be something that I hope that this team will end up drafting later on, because some of the teams are already picking those up and there might not be too many options left later on. So we have to wait and see, but it's definitely a good fit on this team.
And then we're gonna continue with the Shaymin-Sky, so we're gonna keep building around that Mega Mawile, and they're doing it well with Araquanid as a very reliable sticky web setter. So yet we have another dimension which you have to prep for, which makes Mega Mawile even scarier.
Yeah, and Araquanid arguably might be the most reliable one because its typing is very unique and somewhat actually reliable.
Good bulk stats.
It has, yeah, and it's also just the ability. Is it Water Bubble? What is
Water
it
Bubble.
called? Yeah, that's very underrated. Ability itself, because it hits so hard with liquidation. Even things that can resist it, like Tentacruel,
yeah, they don't like it.
Dual stab, and it's not taking them. I can tell from experience. I was like, this
you
thing
get
is supposed
two-shot.
to be a counter, and this thing is supposed to be a counter, and it dies to this thing anyway. So it's very underrated offensively as well. And like you said, it's a good fit with her first pick, and I like the fact she is prioritizing to support it properly. And big fan of this pick on the team.
And then we have we have Crawdaunt, which is something you don't see drafted too often, but when it does, it's scary. But on this team as well, when you already have to watch out for not being swept by either Garchomp or Diancie, you add another way of sweeping in Crawdaunt. You add priority, which this team didn't have before. So in that sense, I can see the pick. And of course, like I said, dark typing is really important in this format, and stab knockoff from Crawdaunt hurts a lot.
Yeah, I think the primary upside what I saw with this pick, even though it was very surprising that it went already, because it doesn't often get even drafted, so there was a good chance he could have waited on this pick. But if he was worried about the limited options that we do have in dark types which are available, then I can see the upside of picking Crawdaunt already at this point and making sure that you get a dark type that at least you're a fan of using. And very fun to see this one being actually drafted and see how it's going to perform. Hopefully it's not going to do too much work versus me, because it's going to be spooky to deal with.
Yeah, for sure. And then going onto a sweeping. So we're not going to draft a dragon type just yet. Maybe on the second pick of the wheel. But Nihilego is going to be paired up with Koko, Ferrothorn, and Clefable. And so far, I'm a decent fan of this team. The only thing I keep saying is watch the ground weakness.
Yeah, but the amount of hazards this guy has with Tapu Koko is disgusting. He has Toxic Spikes, he has 3 Rockers, he has a Spiker. This thing with Beast Boost and a different kind of sets like Choice Scarf for a speed boosting nature and allowing the Beast to give it a +1 speed every single time it gets a kill with all that hazards options can be very annoying to deal with. And having already like things like Clefable, which already pressures opponents' steel types, if you can overlap the pressure to that one steel type that traps will have, I can see the upside of having Nihilego on this team, as long as, like you said, the ground weakness will be supported with the remaining of the picks, or with at least some of them.
Well, not yet, but dark typing, we said it before, it's important and the good ones are going, and this team is snagging up themselves a Crocodile and also adding the ground typing to their own team with that. So I'm a big fan of Crocodile.
Yeah, he has already like 4 Rockers, so he's having no trouble figuring out who is going to be his Rocker for each week. And Crocodile, to me, is one of the better value picks out of Tier 3 and one of the better dark types to have. And just the dual typing is really something that I'm a big fan of, especially since he has the Tapu Koko. He doesn't have to worry about Crocodile being his ground type and his potential answer for that thing in the future. So I definitely like this pick. I definitely like the Mon personally. I have had a lot of good success in the past and experience of using it. It can be very versatile, and Moxie ability, similar to Nihilego, can function really well in Choice Scout set, and with all the hazards options he has, it can start snowballing effect very quickly if you're not careful.
Yeah, and in general, like, Intimidate's also a very good ability, but this dude is making the team even more scarier with one of the best normal types we have in Snorlax. And honestly, if this team is... What is going to stop this team from just putting down? Everything forces so much prep at this point already.
It's so versatile, it has so much bulk. This is beneficial of a bulky offense that I do like. once it gets a little bit more better speed control with higher speed tiers. But Snorlax itself is a very annoying mon because you always have to respect it on prep. Whatever set it's gonna be, a Salt Vest, Figgy Berry with the Gluttony set, a Choice Bandit, Curse, a Sleep Rest Talk, or whatever you want to do with it. It's so versatile, it's so bulky, and it can over centralize a certain matchup because it's so threatening if it gets any kind of setup going. And I like the Thick Fat also for this team because it supports Guardsomp really well and also the Celesteela.
Speaking of support, again, the Shaymin-Skys are not stopping supporting Mega Mawile. They're adding elite speed, which the team kinda had in Dugtrio, but now you really have it. And another momentum gainer to get in Mawile a lot. Like, Jolteon's not your breaker, Jolteon is your speed tier and your momentum gainer. And if used well, also even not without Mega Mawile, but also to Volt Switch out against Steel types, get in Dugtrio, or against other things that want to switch on Jolteon, get in a Raikou and just hit that Choice Bandit liquidation.
Yeah, now she has 2 bottom pass users which are decent for momentum gaining, and they can also run substitutes on them. That's the only thing that we can bottom pass in this league, as a reminder that you can bottom pass substitute but not any kind of stat boost.
Hey man, there's something else you can pass. Maybe Secret Tech here? Do you know? There's something else you can pass.
Well, there are some other niches too, but primarily what I think about, like, because Mawile and Jolteon do force a lot of switches, they can be substitute passes very efficiently. And like you said, it's a very good speed control mon and gives a little bit more reliability in that, since Dugtrio won't always be able to provide that in every matchup.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm just gonna spoil it right now. Maybe this was something the coach wanted to use for prep, but Jolteon gets a cool move called Magnet Rise. And you can baton pass that, in fact, into your Mawile.
Okay, well, that's good to know when I face this team. I forgot about that. Honestly, that's why I was kind of quiet. That what are you trying to hit?
Yeah,
I'm not going to say anything.
It was the Magnet Rise. So, but anyways, we're gonna move on. Shaymin, and this Fire Water Grass Gourd needs a fire, but this is one thing I can agree. This one of my favorite grass types with one of my favorite water types in the format.
Yeah, and as a tier 3, similar to Krookodile, these are one of the best tier 3 mons you could pick, and gives him just another bulky mod which can be very versatile. So I like that aspect about this team, that most of his mons are really versatile and you can make them take certain hits what you need to and have a decent coverage as well, and Shaymin does have that, and gives him some sort of like a natural cure user to absorb any kind of status which can come into way of like Mew and Roto was, for example. So very nice mon, very nice pick. Definitely gonna be one of the most reliable mons on this roster.
And then going on to the Mega of the Thunders, which is going to be Mega Kangaskhan, which of course is not gonna run Seismitoss, that's broken, but I really
and also doesn't lose any points.
Yeah, I also really start to like this team, because I think at this point it's good if you have Mega Kangaskhan if your Steel type is not what you're fighting. You get it in for free a lot with Crobat, Jirachi, and with Zeraora, and you have the terrain of Finny to prevent this thing from being status. So I think this is, if you continue on this trend, it's gonna be a really scary team.
Yeah. He has already now double Wisp passing, and like you said about its only weakness to fighting. The only thing that is, he doesn't have yet any weaknesses to it. He has 2 things that are neutral to it, and then Tapu Fini and Crobat both can take on any kind of fighting hit very easily. So I like to fit on the team, and sort of surprised that it went this late, considering it's kind of like quote-unquote new toy for some coaches who haven't been able to use it or seen it being allowed in leagues.
And now this is early.
Yeah, this was a surprise when I saw it. Lurantis went at this point, but some of the things that at least as a plus side before criticizing that how early the coach picked it is that it does give him another defogger for his team. It's a pure Crash type, which is a decent counter resist to support Charizard X and Bisharp, and considering he doesn't have any immunities yet to Crown itself, barring a Silvally Flying, for example, it can provide some value to him, and Contrary does allow it to be like a bulky breaker in a sense with Leaf Storm or Superpower, for example, and he can run like both physical attacking sets and special attacking sets considering its move pool and stats.
Yeah, but we're still talking about a Maul with like 40-ish speed.
Yeah, it's still very slow, and again, even though like it's good that he picks a tier 5 Maul with a purpose, I'm a big fan of that. As a round 5 pick for Lurantis itself, it's hard to justify that you should be picking it this early, but I do see the thought process behind it at very least, and like the fact that it should have a purpose.
And this is another, like, the Stallions are picking almost every mon I like in this format at this point. And, like, Celeste is amazing, in my opinion. Like, it gives you even more speed. Like, that's something we said about Zygarde, watch out for the speed. And then you grabs Greninja, Salazzle, and Thundurus Incarnate. So that speed is not an issue anymore, you're good there. You get another special breaker. I mean, you have Zygarde as your physical breaker, but you might, if you want to run it setup, you might want to get another physical breaker. But besides that, I don't really see many downfalls of this team just yet, as far as the team can be in round 5.
Yeah, he has been able to pick a very good speed control, because the slowest mon for his team that he has picked past 3 rounds is Thundurus Incarnate. That's insane, considering like how valuable speed control is and how hard they are to find, and also the fact that it's part poison, giving him immunity to toxic spikes, which makes it less likely to be used against him, and just with its ability can able to toxic literally anything. Yeah, with corrosion plus toxic and being part poison type, it never misses. That is a cool tech to have, and it's a very cool mon to see being used, and I'm a big fan of it myself.
Yeah, definitely the right turn to pick this.
Yeah.
And then we're going to the first non-default Pokemon on this team. We have Vaporeon going on this team, but you said this before, this team needs a good water type to take those ice hits, and I think Vaporeon definitely does that job.
Yeah, considering we don't know yet our coach's plan for his Mega Evolution, and considering that he already had picked tier 1s and tier 2s, Vaporeon might have been the best bulky water type for his need on the team, which isn't too passive in itself, because it can roar and phase things out and have haste as well. It can whisk pass into other things that not necessarily need on his team, but it's still nice to have, and it can whisk pass in itself, and having a cleric water immunity cause Skull can be a little bit of annoying for him to switch into, so very solid pick and something that he definitely needed.
For sure. And then we're gonna go to your pick, and we have said this before with taking Tangrowth out for Zygarde. You're doing what I would always do with Megalopony, take that Gavagarus off the board, and besides it, even taking your count, like the only Megalopony counter in the whole game off the board, again, you add something to take on those fighting types which your offensive core was weak against.
That was the biggest attribute why I wanted Kofukriegas, because my only fighting resist as of right now is Landorus Tega, which is times 4 weak to ice, so it takes one proper prediction and that thing is almost gone from the entire game and dies from there. So adding that, and also adding Toxic Spike user to my team outside of a grounded poison type was another big aspect that I wanted Kofukriegas, because Alola doesn't have access to them, so being able to add them to my team that Megalopony loves, that kind of hazard support was something that I was really looking forward to get, and I'm happy with this pick, trying to pick it up as early as possible to make sure that I got it.
For sure. And then moving on, we're gonna add some rocks here to the Slowbros and some more speed, which I'm definitely a fan of with Incobalion on this pick here.
Yeah, considering that he has dual psychic types that are weak to dark, it gives him a justified user in Cobalion, which does help it a lot, because it's not necessarily the strongest mon out there naturally, but it's a very good mon. I'm a big fan of Cobalion itself, giving Stealth Rocks another momentum gainer, barring again Slowbro. Everything on his team gets some sort of momentum, and very good speed here as well in 108. It's actually right now his fastest mon, so it's good to see that he starts to prioritizing that aspect for his team.
For sure, and he is going to pair that up with Nidoking, and I've been using Nidoking with Hydreigon back to back, and I am really loving that core. I also had Sylveon on that team, so 3 of the Pokemon that won me my championships are represented here. And I can only tell you, this works out really well, and this team is going to be very hard to switch into at this point.
Yeah, I love the fact that every single mon he has picked can be versatile, and they are very reliable what they do. And he was able to now pick 2 Stealth Rockers, seeing kind of the trend that it seems like that he was prioritizing as well. Giving a Toxic Spiker and immunity itself too was nice. And like you said, I actually have it now myself to Hydreigon Nidoking combo in a league, and Nidos go really well with Hydreigon because they are one of the best fairy killers out there and very hard to switch into.
For sure. And then we're going back to your team again, picking up a Pokemon that is not weak to fighting, at least this time, but Starmie, and that is something that I'm a huge fan of Starmie, but you already know that yourself, so...
Yeah. Well, both of us are a really big fan. I'm considering it was tier 2, and as well that it gives me a good speed tier now, besides Mega Lopunny at 115, between Mega Lopunny and Current Black, feeling that kind of need, and also giving me a very reliable Rapid Spinner and another hazard removal outside of Lander's turn as of right now was a big attribute why I really wanted to pick Starmie up. And I'm being a big fan of Starmie, and I'm really excited to use it again. And I think it's going to be a lot better than people may give it credit for, and can be very versatile with either fast supportive sets or with analytic. It can break a lot of teams a lot easier than give it credit for, because it has very good move pool, and with the analytic boost it can hit the switchings a lot harder than naturally itself.
I think especially after Auras, people have been underestimating, like in Ultra Moon, you have been underestimating Starmie a lot, and maybe we'll see some change happening here. But moving on to the Razor wins again, picking Roserade. Kind of broke my tongue over there, but it works out. Roserade, definitely something that I agree on this team. Like, yes, you can. It doesn't matter that you pick up a grass type that is not resisting ground at this point anymore. Like, look at this team. This team ain't give a shit about ground.
Yeah, the only thing that it has to worry about is facing like a 1000 arrow abusers like the Zygarde. So we haven't seen Psydog yet being going, but we know Zygarde 50 has been picked, so that one still can cause trouble. But outside of that, any other ground types he has good responses to throughout his immunities, and some monsters that can at least take the hits decently well and hit hard back. What I would really hope for that this team would have Stealth Rock users more often. He doesn't have any of those left, so he will be able to add some hazard stacking options which can go well with his full turn action what he has going on.
He has spikes now, Rose, right? But like...
Yeah, he has spikes and toxic spikes and immunity to toxic spikes with ground and poison typing, so he has some things going on for sure, as long as he's able to pass up some rockers.
Yeah, and something else you mentioned before was this team being semi-weak to Scald. Of course, with Vaporeon is kind of patch, but also Roserade with Natural Cure, of course, helps out with that.
Yeah, having 2 great abilities with Technician and Nature Cure is really something that I really love about Roserade. Like, it's one of my favorite grass types in Draft League, and as long as you're able to afford not to resist ground with your grass type, Roserade is one of the best in business and very good what it can do offensively and supportive wise.
Definitely. And then moving on to the Stalfins again, picking up Mega Scissor as their choice of a Mega in here, and I like the mind games this team is going to force, because now you read your thing that can switch in on Hidden Power Ice, which this team was definitely weak to, and you add the need to for your opponent to run HP Fire, which of course the other mons kind of deal with better. So I'm a huge fan of this. Another momentum user, a very good momentum user, a priority user. So again, you have now Extreme Speed, you have Water Shuriken, and you have Bullet Punch, and you have Prankster. Like that's a lot.
Yeah, and I like the fact that this is gonna be his Steel type as an Ice Resist, because Ice typing is a little bit annoying to him outside of Mega Scissor itself, considering his Water type is Greninja and his Fire type is Salatsu. So it definitely feels the need that he definitely can use on his team, considering that he has Zygarde and Thundurus Incarnate. So big fan of this pick on the team itself, and it's definitely gonna serve a purpose.
Yeah, I'm thinking that for sure. So moving on to the next pick, which is going to be Slow King going to the Totodile. We're still going to let that tier 1 slot sitting there, potentially till like really late draft. But
Yeah,
this
the
thing
team
also
seems
is...
to be focusing on the lower tier picks first and get the ones that he needs from those tiers.
Yeah, but in general, Slowking under Trick Room or with that potential, again, Auroraville's there. So I really feel like this team tries to get everything out of Auroraville as much as possible.
Yeah, and just naturally with just being a bulky water type and psychic typing itself and having regenerator can really help some of his most like Bishop. It supports really well, and just overall it's going to have very good options offensively as well, because it has a very good move pool coverage wise, and it has actually access to nasty plot, which its counterpart Slowbro doesn't have access to, so it goes really well with, like you said, with setup options and having access to Trick Room.
Yeah, for sure. And then Salamence is going to complete the Fairy Dragon Steel Core. Jirachi, Salamence, Tapu Fini. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. That's definitely up there with the Mega Diancie, Garchomp and Celesteela, rivaling to be probably, in my eyes, it's the second best so far what we have seen and may up ending up seeing. And Salamence itself as a tier 2 mon can be very good sea captain if you give it access to that. Having Intimidate and Moxie, giving it a lot of options in that regard, what kind of sets you can run with it. The only downside with Salamence, what I have seen and heard about being criticized by it, that it has all the tools that it potentially needs to deal with its counters, but matchups can really force a lot of 4-move syndromes within it mon itself, and that can really be kind of like compromising Salamence's effectiveness if it runs into that problem. But I do like the fit on the team, and it gives him another crown immunity besides Crobat, which can be nice for Steaua and Jirachi.
Yeah, and another one that takes fighting hits as well for Mega Kangaskhan.
So he's filling out those kind of...
The thing which you said about Salamence is, it couldn't be more true. Like, Salamence can 1v1 basically almost any Pokemon in the format, but the matchup needs to be there because it needs a very specific set to beat everyone individually. But we're going to see how he does about that. And so far, he is the Tyranitar doing a good job at not forcing Mew into the default role. They have Rotom, they have Altaria, they have Hitmontop. Like, that's definitely
the amount of bulk on this team is kind of disgusting, to be honest. Hitmontop with Intimidate can be so bulky, and it has not really good natural special defense, so you can make it going both ways and be mixed defensive or whatever you want out of it. And like you said, making sure that Mew is not forced into defensive role, which it should not be by any means at this point looking at his team, is definitely something that is going for this team.
Yeah, this team definitely needs some breakers though at this point. But
yeah, it needs breakers and speed, and they are definitely offensively he lacks a lot of things, but at least defensive aspect he's doing a good job with his draft so far. And
then another pick I can agree with on the Shaymin-Sky, Arcanine, which is probably my second favorite fire type in the whole format. It's so reliable, it can do so many different things, it has reliable recovery, it can face you, it can be physically offensive, physically defensive, specially offensive, special defense, extreme speed, good speed set in general, good abilities, like, and again...
Yeah, and just the fact that she has Mega Marwal, and Arcanine might be one of the better defensive responses, which are very rare to come in Draft League format, and she's just speaking for herself, so
yeah,
that's
big fan.
another like a tragic I don't know how to pronounce that word, but it's basically we have seen a lot of teams taking that idea that they want to draft a mon that they don't want to face themselves.
For sure. And then Alolan Marowak going to the Swampert, and at this point, please get a Trick Room center. Like, you have your nasty core in Celesteela, Mega Diancie, Garchomp, and they have Snorlax, Crawdont, Alolan Marowak, potentially with Trick Room. Like, this is getting scary. Yeah,
those are really the primary options to abuse Trick Room, and it does give him another Stealth Rock. It gives him a very good defensive response to things that, for example, Celesteela is worried about.
Another Volt Blocker besides Garchomp.
Yeah, like giving just a potential electric immunity and a fire resistance. Like defensively wise, I do see the upside of this pick, and as long as, like you said, we see some trick room setters and maybe some speed, this is gonna be a good addition on the team.
For sure. And then still no dragon. Maybe on the next pick of the wheel, but we have the Wilmers here coming in with Darmanitan as another way of like cleaning late game or just breaking mid game.
Yeah, and just giving a strong U-turner to go with like a volt and go between Tapu Koko and just be able to break fat grass types that can be a little bit annoying for his Koko and Crocodile. And now he has Darmanitan, he has Nihilego. This gives him another response to steel types that can be a little bit annoying to Clefable and Nihilego again, with Crocodile and Darmanitan being his tier 3 picks. So offensively wise, I do see the upside of having Darmanitan on his team. Just the crown weakness is something that is really patching up. So not having any kind of immunity or resistance to it yet is something that I'm concerned of.
Yeah, at this point your slots for a high tier dragon are kinda gone, but there aren't any high tier dragons left to begin with.
Depending how he's gonna use his mega slot, like as of right now, if he picks a high tier mega, he's limiting his options for other things like dragon type.
That's not a high tier, and that's also not a dragon. That's a quillfish.
Oh, wait, it's almost a dragon. Look at its face. It can be a dragon if he wants to.
It is another. It's another weakness to ground though, but I can see it at some point being something to pair up well with like Clefable, most likely, like Clefable and Ferroform, but it's a secondary poison type, which of course takes off some pressure from setting Toxic Spikes with Nihilego. Intimidate is nice in general.
Or just adding another spike, or if Ferrothorn is not able to fulfill that role. And between Ferrothorn and Quillfish, they have pretty cool synergy together. But again, just the worry of crown weakness right now is just rising and rising every single pick when he's picking up something that is weak to it. But I do like Quillfish myself a lot. It was actually on my radar, potentially to be picked up. And for his team, I can see the upside of having it as long as he's able to support it properly.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to move on, and there's your Trick Room setter, man. There it is. There's the Yuxi.
Yeah, probably one of the best, if not the best, Trick Room setter out there, because it has access to U-turn, it has Trick Room, it's so disgustingly bulky. It can also set up Stealth Rocks while at it. It's just a reliable mod. Both of us have had it before, and anyone who has had Yuxi usually doesn't have anything bad to say about it, barring being relatively not strong offensively wise, but it has the proper move pool as a pure Psychic types. Psychic types just have a really good move pool, both coverage wise and supportive wise, and in a supportive role, Yuxi is really good both in balance build, in bulky offense build, or in a more of a offensive build itself, because it can fulfill so many roles in defense.
I'm a big fan of Yuxi, and what you said, like the damage output, you do have Foul Play for the physical threats, and of course you have Future as well. Another rocker, Trick Room for this team. I'm digging it. I'm definitely digging it. And then
another crown immunity, which is nice.
Yeah, and then going on Miltank to the Shaymin-Skies, and I know how long Serene Grace have wanted to use Miltank to the point where she wanted this in season 2 of the UBL, and then it got sniped, and she said, I'm honestly considering picking it round 1 next season just because I want it. But all jokes aside though, this is with Thick Fat, of course, one of the mons that will take the fire type hits for Mega Molo even better, besides Arcanine and Araquanine, so that weakness is patched for sure. Stealth works there, reliable recovery, annoying to deal with, Thunder Wave, Spreader. Like, what do you want anymore?
Yeah, it's just a really good mod to splash on your draft and your team build, because it can do so many things well. It has 3 great abilities in Sap Zipper, Thick Fat, and even the Scrabby, which does allow it to be even a setup threat, which is not seen often with Curse, but it can be something to be able to pull out with it. And it's so annoying that this is so hard to take down. It has a reliable recovery, and it has base 100 speed here. I don't know, why does it have 100 speed here? I never know. I never understand that.
No, don't ask me why. Like, I think many people have, and we still have no answer. And in the meantime, the Tyrantrams are going to pair up their Fire, Water, Grass-Core with, actually finish it off with Incineroar, and we've spoken about very good Fairy Dragon Steel cores, but at this point, I think this might be the best Fire, Water, Grass-Core we have seen so far.
Yeah, because it does provide a Volturn out of it when you look at its core with Rotowas and Incineroar. And again, we have emphasized this before throughout this stream, Dark types are so hard to find, at least very reliable ones with a decent price, and Incineroar definitely is both of them as a tier 3 Dark typing as well. With Intimidate now access to it, it actually helps it a lot more than it had without it just having a Blaze ability. And I have used this recently as well on my first try, and I instantly very in love using it, that it's definitely worth to pick up if you are kind of lacking your Dark type and you want to feel that role.
For sure. And then, speaking of Dark types, this team wants 1-2, and they're gonna pick up Scrafty, which has done really well for A-Drive in the past UBL season, so we're gonna see if it can keep up that trend, and especially like the ability to have, it could have Shed Skin, but under Missing Terrain you force that less, so you can run like Intimidate or Moxie more easily.
Yeah, and I actually saw it doing really well recently too in the GBA Season 8 when Chimpact was able to win the title, and he was really good using Scrafty to its full potential. And it's really like, after seeing people starting to give it more credit and using it more often, it makes me myself to really give it a try one day as a tier 4 Dark type, even if it's weak to Fairy 4 times. Again, Hidden Power Fairy is not a thing, and you can definitely do your proper scouting throughout prep and during the battle itself, that Witch can take it on and hit it so hard through its weakness.
For sure. And then another Pokemon which I know you're a big fan of, and I've actually drafted recently myself again, is going to be Donphan, being the ground type for this team. But I'm definitely a fan of the hazard removal we're getting. Actually more hazard removal for Zardax, because of course that thing is 4 times weak to Stealth Rocks prior to Mega Evolution, and you now have Defog Silvally, you have Defog Lurantis, and you have Rapid Spin Donphan, so you're kind of patching that up.
Yeah, and it's just giving a very reliable rocker, because Bishop is hopefully not having to fulfill that role. So with Donphan, he gives him that, and it's very underrated how strong this thing is offensively wise. Like, I have run Choice Bandit back in Generation 6, and it was so much fun to use. And as long as your team is not too weak to electric types, and thankfully he does have Charizard X to kind of soft check them quite well without rocks being up, Donphan can definitely do its job really well and be actually a really good defense, physically defensive wall if needed to, or just build bulky offensively, tank hits, and dish a lot of hits back as well. And having a non-stab priority nice shot is pretty valuable to in some matchups when you have seen Zygarde 50 and Salamence being picked.
And then moving on to the Stoutlands, picking up Mesprit. I mean, it's not quite Yuxi, but it's one I really like as well. Especially on this team with another ground immunity being added here. And also a Pokemon that has the option to be a little bit more defensive as well, to pair up with Tangrowth a little bit better here. Also to potentially take some fighting hits a bit better, because of course your flying type in Thundurus is not going to do that. Scizor, of course, is your steel. It's not weak to it because it's part bug, which is great, but I definitely like the option to have it here. Also to not just lose your Greninja to Mach Punch.
The fact that he's able to finally get a good, like, his first Stealth Rocker, and at least Mesprit should be very reliable in that role when it's being brought, and being so bulky and having such a good coverage moves in itself, it definitely should be able to provide that role really well for his team. And again, having a pivot with U-turn is really nice for his team, considering how many momentum gainers he already has.
Which one don't? Like Zygarde, Tangrowth, and Celestial do not. The rest all does.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's actually crazy. And then, I'm not a big fan of Comfy. Not even gonna hide it. I don't like Comfy. But at least one thing I can see right here is, actually no, it's again like Comfy. Like Comfy is not a Dragon Switch in because it's so it's so frail, and then that means it's gonna put a lot of pressure on Scizor and Vaporeon, I feel like.
Depends, like he has summons that can take dragon type hits, and to be fair, like Comfy has to be kind of seen different ways than you normally look at your fairy type, and as long as again, we do have some worries about if it's capable of, or he can afford to not having a fairy type to take on dragons. But itself, Comfy is it's a very annoying one if you don't have a very strong fire type, steel type, or a poison type still around in the battle. Cause with just Calm Eyes and Training Kisses, it can easily sweep through teams, and it's so annoying to take down. And another one which has such ridiculous base speeds that are 100 as a pivot or a wall. And he actually say another U-turn user on his team. So there are definitely some teams out there which we have seen so far that have very good momentum gainers on his team. So as long as this team is capable of dealing with dragon types, I can see Comfy still working out well. And we shouldn't undersell it too much. It's just very different fairy type.
No, I still don't like it, but it's not a default user for the team, so there we go again. But let's move on to Licky. Licky, probably, arguably the best tier 5 in the format.
Yeah, this is a pick that I thought that since I had already Go for Grigas on my team, I was like, you know what, I'm not too sure yet what tier 5 pick I want. So I might as well pick the one which I know is one of the best tier 5 picks out there, and just giving Wish passing support to some of my mods on my team. Primarily the Go for Grigas Licky Licky is very cheap and reliable combo, but also having Wish passing to Landers Therian, Alolan Mug if it doesn't have the Super Berry is nice. Having a Cleric option and pure normal types with good bulk can be so reliable pivots and walls in Draft League format. And even though I already have a normal type in Mega Lopunny, they are very different what they do. So I felt pretty comfortable with this pick, and I figured just the fact that I'm able to secure my tier 5 pick now and know what I get out of it was something that I primarily had as my motivation to do this pick.
Yeah, and Oblivious Wish is always good. That combination of those.
The fact that it cannot be taunted is really nice, and having the great coverage that normal types always have access to is really nice throughout the team build.
And then moving on to the Slowbros around the wheel again. Doing two interesting things with this Raikou pick here. First of all, they grabbed an Electro type to gain some fast Electro type with more momentum and more speed on this team, which is definitely great because Cobalion so far was the fastest mon. And they picked all their free picks already.
Yeah, and all of them are tier 2s, which means that he has to pick a plus 80 mega for certain.
Yep.
Which none of them have been taken, so he has all of the options that he wants to. But this was very interesting once this was, like, once he finally picked Raikou, it kind of made sure that he has to pick that tier of a mega. So it's going to be interesting to see what it's going to end up being. Raikou itself is going to provide him a very good speed tier that, again, he needed alongside with Cobalion to add into that. A lot of more ball turn core for his team, and just another really reliable mon itself. When you look at all of his picks so far, all of them are relatively versatile, relatively bulky, and you can do a lot of different things with them. So cannot really complain about his draft so far.
And he's going to pair it up with Komala as his tier 5, so maybe the same thoughts that you put in. Like, if you know you want this tier 5 for a particular reason, just grab it, because again, it's one of the better tier 5s. It's not a great mon in my opinion, but again, it adds defog, actually rep spin, not defog. Defog, it has U-turn for some reason, normal types hit hard, it cannot be status barring sleep, which is great, and of course also the it's a normal type, it gets a lot of moves, but also Wish, which is something phenomenal for this thing as well.
Yeah, and now he has basically 2 Wish passes. This one is not necessarily the best one.
Oh yeah,
because it has a low HP stat, but it can at least recover itself if needed to. So definitely as a tier 5 pick, I can understand it, because again, tier 5 is one of the hardest, if not the hardest tier to pick from. And for me, I think it's really important in tier system drafts to make sure you get a tier 5 that serves a purpose, and Komala should be able to do that. Hopefully, even though it's underwhelming mon, it can still do something for his team.
And then going back to your team, picking up that Seismitoad as the water type, which is this the third or the fourth time in a row you've drafted this?
Actually, this is only my second time, I believe.
IPL Open.
Yeah, actually, third time. Considering that it's the third time now. Oh yeah, it's recently been pretty go-to mon for me, but the main attraction to this is that I'm able to add myself a second stealth rocker, because I didn't have yet besides Landers Therian, so that was a big thing. The fact that it's a ground type which has a different times for weakness was something that I knew eventually I will patch up some ways. And Seismitoad at this point of time seemed like the perfect fit for that. And giving myself also a bulkier water type than Starmie. So now with Seismitoad pick itself, I'm able to provide the Stealth Rocks and allowing Landorus-Therian and Starmie to do their roles better and be more versatile and freed from different kind of options that I might have had to put them on without Seismitoad on the team.
Yeah, the only thing with the hidden powers is that like they still don't resist each other's 4 times weakness. That's the only thing.
Yeah,
but it's
like,
still mind game forcing.
Yeah, but the fact that like I have taken up several hidden power ices with this thing on neutral hidden power ices, it doesn't care about them. It has such a high HP stat, and when you invest it properly in right areas, it can take so many hits. And I don't have that much of a crash weakness on my team so far, so I think it's gonna do well.
Yeah, in the meantime, the Razor Winds are again showing a big middle finger to Hazard setting with Hitmonchan as our tier 5. But again, as a tier 5 Pokemon, I feel like Hitmonchan definitely has its needs. It sometimes gets slaps on because it's obviously the worst of the Hitmons, but it still provides a decent value for the tier you're picking it in right now. And again, this might be on the same boat as if you want something from tier 5, like one of the good tier 5s for a team, you should grab it. You should grab it soon.
Yeah, and the fact that it has Iron Fist ability and having so many different kind of punching moves, it at least allows it to be less passive than Hitmontop, for example, as a counterpart, which is in other areas superior to it, but being able to be relatively strong itself. And basically, when you look at his team, the only moves that don't get access to hazard remover option is Vaporeon and Rose Red, and everything else can potentially remove hazard, so he doesn't worry about those at all. It's only that he doesn't have Stealth Rocker yet is my main concern. And also Hitmonchan provides him another more access to priority, which is nice.
For sure. And then we're adding Diancie to the Staff Lens, which is a second Stealth Rock user, and we've talked about this before, but for a team that didn't have any Stealth Rock setters 2 turns ago, if you're able to pick up Diancie and Nesprit on your semi-wheel, you're doing a great job at patching that Stealth Rocks you didn't have.
Yeah, and both of them are listed as tier 4s, and to me they are one of the better tier 4s out there, and providing him another fire resist now on his team is really nice, because so far the only fire resist were Zygarde, Greninja and Salat, so Zygarde can take those relatively well, but Greninja and Salatster don't take them as well, so having that is nice, and just another mod that has a times 4 weakness, so it adds up to the mind games going forward.
For sure. And then the tier 1, which we've been waiting for on the Totodiles, and they've used it well with Tornadus, because I feel like Tornadus really benefits a lot on this team, like with the U-turn, with the Regenerator, being able to sometimes miss a Hurricane behind Phil, but also to get another way of gaining momentum here, another defog user. So I think if you can pick it up at this point in the draft, it's definitely a good value for your team.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous to me, because I normally see this thing going even in round 1 in 16 people draft, then even more often I see it in round 2, and from there on out. Like usually I see it being picked at least at round 3. So considering it was on the table this late, and he's able to pick it up so late, it's really good value and a great speed tier to add on his team.
And again, a Regenerator user to pair up with.
Yeah, he has 2
Slowking.
Regenerator users right now, so he's able to have some good pivots with that ability as well, and not losing momentum going for a recovery move.
And here we have the Thunders picking up their secondary Steel type in Fortress here. Of course, it is a 4 times weakness to fire there, but you have your Salamence, you have your Finny. Shouldn't be too big of an issue, and you may force some more prep that free up Jirachi a little bit more in that sense, that it doesn't have to be your defensive Steel type each week.
Yeah, and also doesn't have to be his Stealth Rocker either, because this is gonna be finally his second Stealth Rock user, similar to myself, that we were able to patch those off finally, at least gain a second one. And this gives him a Toxic Spike user, and since his Poison type doesn't have access to them, it's nice to find another ways to add them if he ever wants to use them. Regular spikes are also nice for his team, because he doesn't have the greatest breakers, but he has solid offense otherwise, and with spikes it can become even better.
Yeah, and a Rapid Spanner now, besides the removal of Crobat and Finny. So that's also great to have there. And then finally a breaker. Still no speed, but finally a breaker on the Tyrantrums. We have Mamoswine, which again, we talked about this with same story as with Tornadosarian. Like, this thing has always gone round 3, and we're sitting here round 7 and it's getting picked.
Yeah, and just adding a little bit more priority to his team, arguably one of the best, if not the best priority in Ice Shard. Mamoswine is probably the best besides V-Evolve for that, and just straight out nuke, giving another stealth rocker on his team besides Mew and Stakataka, which it can do in matchups where you know it's gonna force switches and find a free turn to do that, and just a menacing mon to switch into. It's literally a balance breaker, and Ice and Ground is both of them individually are great offensive types, and when you can combine them together with this one, it's just so many teams are going to have trouble switching into this thing.
Yeah, for sure. And we all know the meme of your team loses to Mamoswine, so let's hope for this, because this also keeps going on to this season. And then another pick which I'm a big fan of on the Shaymin-Sky. I cannot help it, but every pick this team is making I agree with, and Superior being another one. Also coming back to previous statements we had, the ways you support Mega Marvel are really similar to the ways you support Superior, so in that sense it's not too much of an added thing, you don't need to patch much. Another great thing which I like is that Superior a lot of the time is stopped by poison types, which sometimes rely on running Assault Fast, which means they cannot run Shed Shell for Duck Trio.
Yeah, and the fact that it does have access to Knocko, which you can again help alongside with Mega Marvel to get rid of those Shed Cells, and Duck Trio allows to get rid of the counters that Superior Mega Marvel may have, or just in general just want to get rid of. Or Latias can also use a lot from getting rid of a bulky Steel type, so very, very solid pick. I see a lot of good synergy out there. Another defoker, great speed tier to have, and contrary Leaf Storm, etc. can be a very good winning condition once the counters have been taken care of.
Sure. And then going on, another Trick Room abuser here in Vikavolt for these Swampards.
Yeah, and this is a really cool pick in a sense that only A-Tribe, I believe, has really showcased to bigger audience that what Vikavolt is capable of. And I've always been a big fan of Bug and Electric as a dual typing. I always love Galvantula in that sense, especially when it just has something like grass type move like Energy Ball to have access to that, and then just slap a hidden power what you need to. And that's literally all you really need for as its coverage to be able to hit everything that it needs to, and giving another crown immunity, having access to Roost, and just that insane special attacks that are 145 is not gonna be fun switching into this thing. It's gonna be doing the similar theme that he has had few picks, that he's picking a lot of slow mons, but they hit ridiculously hard. So there is a lot of Trick Room element on this team.
Yeah, of course. I maybe like a second setter here, but also Vikavolt gets agility, so that's something to also keep in mind.
Yeah, it can set up with that, and thankfully it does give it +2 speed, so with its mediocre speed stat of 43, it can still work out for it to be able to outspeed certain things.
And then we're gonna move on to a ground resist being actually drafted at the Wilmers, being Mega Obama Snow, also to give this team a little bit more points for later in the draft.
Yeah, just the fact that we get to see Mega Obama Snow is being picked is just amazing. Like, kudos to Flying Bird to make this decision, say like, crap it, just not cursing here on the stream, but like, picking something like this that you don't see often being picked and giving him so more freedom to his 3 points can be really useful if you use them properly. And somewhat a really cool pick with Tapu Koko, because usually it lures in bulky ground types or bulky grass types. Well, now you have a Mega Obama Snow to abuse that aspect. The only thing that I worry about that this is his ground resist so far, and the fact that he has 2 mons weak to fire so heavily, and his fire resistance aren't the most ideal option to support them.
Indeed, and he is going to pair it up with Buzzwole, which indeed is weak to fire as well, but this thing is actually something that I can see switch in on ground type moves reliably. Yeah,
like Buzzwole is pretty cool mod in a sense that it can function as a wall breaker, because Bug and fighting is very hard to switch into, and it has the proper coverage to hit pretty much everything that can wall it. barring maybe like a really bulky ghost type, like literally everything else it can hit. It has reliable recovery in roost, beast boost ability. You can, again, similar to Nihilego, you can really modify what you want to be boosted after a kill, and giving that reliable crown resist to his team and a really reliable physical wall to a lot of things that you don't think at first that this thing can wall.
Yeah, for sure. The only thing I don't like at this point is, even with the added points of Abomasnow, you are going to be forced to pick at highest a tier 4 dragon, even though you started off with Choco Coco, Ferrothorn, Clefable.
Yeah, and the fact that his crown immunity is going to be at highest from tier 4 is not the most ideal, considering how many weaknesses he has to crown on his team.
We're gonna see. Next up we have Serena going to the Swampards, and I'm not the biggest fan of Serena, but for the price it is available in tier 4 right here, I can see it being able to do work. It does actually give him his first remover, which is late, but it's there.
Relatively late.
And besides that, like, it does jobs, but I think this is going to be pressure to bring a lot unless you patch it up. But he can only pick I think 2 tier 5s at this point, so hazard control might be a bit of an issue for this team, besides how good it looks offensively.
Yeah, it has so many things going for it. Like, the only downside right now is the speed outside of Mega DNC. Other than that, he relies on priority from Crawdont and the Trick Room aspect on his team, and potential any kind of like speed boosting setup throughout his few months. But Serena, definitely a good tier 4 pick, giving a good crash type. It's just the other areas there were bigger needs for his team, I feel like. Oh, we are going to see Superior again.
Yeah, this is a mistake. This is supposed to be Zoroark, indeed. So ignore Superior there, that's Zoroark.
Yeah, Zoroark is just being disguised as Superior, so it's gonna do in the mind games already here on stream. But Zoroark is really cool dark type. The only downside is that, yeah, really nice Zoroark right there. But like, Zoroark itself is a really good dark type that it can be mixed attacker, good speed tier in 105, having access to Knocko, Pursuit and Sucker Punch, which all of them are valuable on your dark type. It has multiple setup options, it has U-turn, and it has basically all what it needs, barring just the bulk can be the lack of bulk on it can be something that it can be very hard to use. And also the effect that I believe on Wi-Fi you can tell that what your opponent is weak to when you check your opponent. So Zoroark's disguise ability might not be as efficient, like for example.
They patched that, right? I think it was patched and not
that. They did fix it, because I remember at time that was a problem.
I think they did, but I'm not. Don't quote me on that. I think they did. But anyways, let's move on.
If it's been fixed, then it's no problem. But it hasn't been fixed, then it can make it a little bit less effective. But yeah, Zoroark is definitely a solid dark type at this point.
Yeah, and then we're gonna finally have him on above 100 base speed on the Tyrantrums, being the Gengar.
Yeah, and finally giving him some reliable speed and just a natural speed itself. And Gengar as a tier 2 is a fair price for it, and I think it's very slept on in a sense that I feel like a lot of people shy away from it because they think it's very one-dimensional and easy to counter. But I have seen actually TTM Stick using this more in a really good success in other league after starting to follow him a little bit more. So I have seen people using it relatively, and it's gonna be cool to see how well it can do this season.
Yeah, of course you have the threat of Pursuit, which Mew is also weak to, but it definitely hits very hard and has a very good speed.
Yeah.
And speaking of tier 5, this one is tier 5, but speaking of ghost types, we have Miss Magus going to the Thunders, and again, Miss Magus is, again, up there as one of the best tier 5s we have available in the old game.
Yeah, it's like Miss Magus has been a tier 5 mode that I have picked several times, purely because there should not be too many drawbacks by picking it. It's a mode that can be relatively underrated offensively. It gives you several immunities to fighting, normal and ground because it has levitate. It can be decent sea captain depending on what kind of sea rules the league it has and what kind of sea captaincy choices you make. It has access to Nasty Plot and Calmite for setup. Heal Bell is nice, and Hex can be very devastating set when he has also access to Toxic Spikes through Fortress. So very solid pick, and just the fact that he picked a tier 5 that definitely can be useful is the biggest credit that I give with this one.
For sure. And then we have another regenerator user here. Mianfu is Mianxiao, the big one.
Thankfully, it's not Mianfu. At least he picked the evolved form.
Yeah, it's Mianxiao here, but again, third regenerator user, and I like Mianxiao personally, and I think it could do fair on this team. It's not really necessarily a abuse of Auroraville, but it does give another momentum user in U-turn paired up with regenerator. So you now have two regenerator use which also have momentum moves and one that's also there.
Yeah, and also of the fact that it also has reckless as one of its ability really gives the wall breaking potential what it can do, which can be really nice because there might be some matchups that you prefer Charizard X being the winning condition instead of a breaker, and maybe there isn't a good matchup for Bishop, so this gives a potential wall breaker to his team which cannot be overlooked.
For sure. And then we have Cryogonal going to the Stoutlands, and we spoke about good tier 5s, and again, Cryogonal, as long as you don't force it into being your rapid spinner, Cryogonal is a very good pickup in tier 5 in my opinion. Also because Ice is just a very good offensive typing, and I've really prepped with this thing where people just don't prep for it defensively. They prep for a defog set, and they just don't see the specs ice beams or something coming, and it is really odd in that sense. It is very bulky on the special side. I've actually seen someone use Toxic Recover Stall on Cryogonal and actually win the game with that, because people just couldn't break it from the special side.
Yeah, and the fact that it has access to freeze dry is really the key aspect why it can be as successful as you say about it being a offensive threat. And it's the ultimate hazard remover because now it also has defog, so just another mon from tier 5 that definitely can do work, and just overall a very good pick for him. It gives him another ice resistance, which can be nice considering what he has.
And then we have a Mega Pokemon on the Razor Winch, which it's weak to ground and cannot remove hazard. This should not be on this team.
I mean, it's his first, second Stealth Rocker besides Landorus Incarnate. And speaking of Landorus Incarnate being only Sand Force, he's able to pick up a decent Sand Core for himself, and very underrated in that sense that they are necessarily not sweepers themselves besides getting a Rock Polish or Dragon Dance up, but they can be medicine breakers, and Mega Tyranitar is a really cool mega that I have seen recent popularity recently, and seeing people like Matty Prolic use it in a really good success in the NPL. So it's cool to see it being drafted here, and the only downside what I see on his team having Mega Tyranitar is that if Rose Raid relies on Synthesis too often, it gets crippled when the sand is up. But other than that, I really like the fit on the team, and giving it just a very strong dark type is really good to be able to get, considering how many of them have been already picked.
Yeah, for sure. And then we're going back to yourself. You're going to pick up another thing that is resisting fighting here, so kind of patching around with that Licky pick from the last time. Whimsicott here, it's not something I've used myself. I'm not sure if you've actually used it before or not.
Not really. I don't think I really had a really good... I remember having it once, but I really never gave it a proper opportunity to showcase what it can do. So that was one of the main attractions, but I thought that it would be really cool to pick something that I never used before. And it gave me another remover, gives me Prankster Tailwind, which is gonna be medicine with Green Black if I'm able to pull that one. Prankster Memento is nice cause I do have two Memento users already with Alola Mach and Go for Kriegers, but there might be scenarios that I don't want to run that. So it can be very nice support for my offense and giving me a little bit more momentum that I already had. And two crucial typings in Fairy and Grass, even though it's not the most typical one to pick for either of those typings for defensive role, I think the offensive upside and the support was too much to pass up on.
For sure. And now we're going to Slowbros, picking up this abomination of a Pokemon, but I guess it does well with Slowbro.
Yeah, well, it's one of the better grass types that were still available for him, and giving a really good fighting resist, another good fairy resist besides Victini, and Nidoking as well, considering that he has a steel typing Cobalion that doesn't resist it, and Hydreigon obviously needs a good amount of support to play around those fairies. So I can see the fit on the team, and Amoonguss is proven to be very reliable tier 3 mon to be picked up. And the only downside is that if you're weak to ground, it's not the most ideal because it doesn't naturally resist them, even though it has solid bulk to take some of those hits. But outside of that, very solid mon. I think it's gonna do relatively well for his team.
Okay, it's gone from my screen. Good. Okay, there is the Omega though, which I'm not sure how to feel about Omega because it hits really hard with tinted lands, but it's really weak to rocks. And on this team, I can see it being forced to run speed boost more than it can run tinted lands, just because of the lack of elite speed this team has.
Yeah, I feel like that's the only really downside. Like, I do like Omega as a tier 4 pick. It can be somewhat overlooked and underrated. The only downside, like you said, that the lack of reliable removers makes it a little bit harder to use, and I think it would have been something that he could have benefited more to be able to pass up more removers for his team to something like Victini, what he has, because his removal options are Komala and Hydreigon at this point.
And going back to you with another defog user and a fire type, which I'm kind of a fan of actually, of the pun not intended for Rotom fan, but we have Rotom Heat right here. And with that also giving you a solid thing to take on that Mega Mawile, which is still there, which cannot be trapped by that trio.
Yeah, and the fact that, like, I also had somewhat a fire weakness and electric type weakness going on earlier before I was able to pick Seismitoad. And now with the Rotom Heat itself, I'm able to pass up that really well. And considering how good and valuable Rotom Heat can be with its dual typing offensively and defensively wise, yeah, I think it's going to be a really good value picking so late. And it's going to be a perfect partner with Seismitoad, considering that it has two weaknesses to rock and water. Seismitoad deals with both of them, being immune to one and resist the other. And the other way around, Rotom Heat doesn't care about like Hidden Power grasses or grass nuts. So it has a good synergy within the team and gives me more momentum, which I really liked when I have something like Current Black to really abuse that.
Yeah, and also this thing takes both the hidden powers your team is weak to in ice and in grass. So in that sense, it's...
I felt like it was just a good fit for the team.
And then we're gonna abuse Sand a little bit more, not just Landorus Incarnate, but also we have Stoutland joining the Razor Winds.
Yeah, and I actually remember my future opponent, the Skyrender. I have seen him using Stoutland recently in a relatively good success, and I have seen it used more often in Generation 6. And it's still somewhat underrated more in a sense that, considering it's a tier 5, it doesn't get often picked up unless you have the Sand support, but if you do have it, it's a really good potential winning condition. The only downside is that he does lack a little bit of natural speed outside of Latios. From my eyes, the other ones are like around base 90 or 100. So having limited turns in Sand and being this one of maybe your primary winning conditions is only downside what I have. But I can understand the pick, because considering that he wanted to pick another tier 5 as his free pick, it was one of the better ones for his team.
And then we're gonna move to the Conkeldurr. We're going to add yet another priority user in Conkeldurr to this team, and in general a very good hard-hitting fighting type. Yeah,
and considering it's now a tier 2, it's becoming from one of the least impactful tier 1 picks to be able to pick. It became now one of the better tier 2s to pick, and I was personally surprised it lasted this long, especially now with the Flame Orb being even better set and Gutsets being more efficient because they had take less recoil from the burn nerf. It's very strong Guts abuser. It has a, like you said, priority option in Mach Punch, which is very valuable, and it gives him a very strong physical wall breaker that definitely was somewhat useful for his team, because he didn't have a strong physical breaker right from the gate.
Yeah, outside of Choice Band Zygarde, but it's like definitely something I like on this team. And then moving on to the Totodile, picking up Galvantula and picking up some late Sticky Web potential on this team looks really nasty to me.
Yeah, and he seems to be valuing his free picks to trying to focus them from tier 3s, and he's doing pretty good job because he's able to pick relatively valuable tier 3s even later on in the draft. And Galvantula providing the sticky webs means that now opponents are even more likely wanting to bring defog, which his buy sharp pick does like quite a bit for its Defiant boost. So now maybe the mind games which we talked about earlier with Brick Break might be less inclined to happen for his advantage, because now he has some elements to pressure opponent to bring defog.
And then going to the ground typing, which is the first ground typing on the Steam being Mudstill, which definitely has some uses. I'm not the biggest fan of Mudstill, but Stamina is of course something you definitely have to prep for, and in general it's not bad, but as your only ground option you should watch out for certain things.
Yeah, but thankfully now in Ultra Sun and Moon, like, we have been able to realize by now what the move tutors offer to certain mons. This one now having access to Stealth Rocks really helps, and even though it lacks reliable recovery and it cannot run rest talk sets too efficiently on this team when he has Double Pinning, at least he has dual Wish Passers to help to keep this thing around. And offensively wise, similar to Donphan, it still can provide to be that bulky choice banded user to take certain hits well and then dish a lot of hits back. And Stanima is a pretty underrated ability to let it function as a defensive pivot.
For sure. And then we have the bird. We have 2 cannon. It looks angry. It wants kills.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure someone on this stream is very happy to see this mon being picked, and I'm kind of fan to see this mon getting picked too, because I want to see a sheer force life of 2 cannon come into games and actually provide some breaking potential. And I don't know, I'm just overall not sure how it's going to fit into the team considering the lack of speed that this team has, but for me, like, I'm happy to see it being picked in a sense that it's not a mod that you see being used often in regular draft league format. So interesting to see how it's going to perform. And as a tier 5, it doesn't cost him too much to go wrong with it. At least he gives himself opportunity to try something very different.
That's for sure. And then we have some more sweeping potential here on the Shaymin-Skies, adding the Shell Smash potential of Minior, which honestly, again, it's another pick I can get behind, especially for it's picked as a tier 4 here. So for that price, you definitely get some good value out of it, and added pressure, which you cannot put towards Latios, you cannot put toward Mawa, you cannot put towards Superior. So in that sense, it's a very valuable pick, and that's in that way.
Yeah, and I like the fact that she does have 2 relatively fast memento uses to allow more like this to shine better on this team that is potentially able to do on other teams, and having also healing with support for this thing and for like several other mods. Like, she has a lot of good options to abuse those kind of supporting moves that she has been able to pick earlier on.
And going to, we just saw Conkeldurr go, so we're now going to go with the little brother here, Girder, which is still a Pokemon I believe in a lot in this format as a tier 5. It's really violent, phenomenally bulky. It still hits like a truck for a tier 5, definitely. Yeah,
it still gets every single ability Conkeldurr gets. It gets basically all the moves that Conkeldurr gets.
There's one big thing it doesn't get. And that's knockoff, unfortunately. That's one thing, one drawback I had of using this myself. Every time I wanted to bring it, I wanted to run knockoff, but it just doesn't get it.
Yeah, but outside of that, it's very good value pick from tier 5, and if he's not able to pick up any kind of speed, the best second thing what you can do with is picking reliable priority options, and Mach Punch, yet again similar to Conkeldurr mentioned earlier, it can provide to be very valuable in certain matchups.
Yeah, and even on the Trick Room, which we talked about with Yuxi, this thing can be a monster.
Again, the Trick Room element is still even stronger on this team. Hopefully it's just not too much to rely on.
And there's finally the Dragon, and I disagree with this. Like, if you start off with you start off with Tapu Koko, Ferrothorn, Clefable, and then you finish that core off with Trampa.
For what it's worth, it's at least tier 5. So it's definitely still worth to pick from that tier itself. It gives him a defogger, gives a Zap Zipper, which I don't think he really needed. But Berserk can be still pretty decent ability to abuse and gives him a fire resist which does have a recovery in Roost. So I can see the merits for this team. But like you said, maybe another tracker could have gone better with this team if he prioritized them early enough. And again, not a crowded mon on a team that is relatively weak to crown is something that could have been done better on this roster. But
yeah,
I'm not gonna be too much against. Not too much against the Trump by itself in Amon. I see the merits, but there were bigger needs for this team.
Yeah, like an immunity to ground, which this team doesn't have.
Yeah,
but
least, yeah.
There's still one more pick, and okay, there it is. There's your immunity right there.
Who needs more crown immunity when you have this thing to take on all the crown types out? A lot of recovery in Roost. Holy EVO.
I'm actually gonna try this.
I'm pretty happy that it got picked because I'm a big fan of Rufflet as it's a mod, but considering the amount of pressure that it has to take on as a crown immunity is just overwhelming for this thing. But in itself, I think the mon can be really fun to give it a try. A lot of people are fan of this mon. Design-wise and what it can do. Bulk upset can be really nice. Hustle can be a good and bad thing depending on if you have to rely to hit your moves unless you're running aerial ace, which it does have access to. But as a team as a whole, when we look at it, definitely some holes to fill. But yeah, there are a lot of threats to deal with, but could have done a little bit better job with the crown immunities besides this thing.
For sure. And then the Swampers are going to round their draft off with Garbodor to add some more hazard setting with this team, which I definitely like, especially as a tier 5 again. Pick out the ones, also with Gerda, the ones you can actually see yourself bringing.
Yeah, just adding the spikes and toxic spikes with his bulky offensive approach that can appreciate to get the extra chip damage when they come in, or they force another things out, like Celesteela with lead seed and toxic spikes and stealth rocks. Everything that resists short damage can be really annoying for teams to deal. And giving himself a chronic poison type obviously also helps with dealing opposing toxic spikes or deter them to be brought if necessary. So overall, looking at the team and looking how Garb fits, I think it's a nice fit itself. Just similar to the previous draft, that there are some clear holes and needs that still this team should be having, which is for this team it's more so about removal and reliable speed. Like the speed is the one which I'm more worried about.
Well, you can see, and Shaymin-Sky are drafting as the last Pokemon Dusknoir, which of course as the ghost typing as well. And overall, a decently bulky mon, which still hits relatively hard. Some good Will-O-Wisp shenanigans going on here. So again, this is a tier 5 I can see coming to a game.
Yeah, at least it provides something different for the team. It has pretty cool abilities and use. Yeah, like pressure ability and frisk ability especially is something that I'm really big fan of. And unfortunately, not more mons that are relatively good don't have access to it, because it can be very valuable asset in a draft league format. So hopefully we get to see Dusknoir doing work. I don't always see it doing enough work when it's being drafted, but it has the upside on paper.
And then we're rounding off the Tyrantrons with Crustle, which again, this is also a tier 5 which can definitely be brought. It can be a Shell Smasher, it can be a hazard setter for this team. But again, I feel like this team, speed-wise and breaking-wise, is still lacking a bit, besides setup.
Yeah, like a lot of times I do see this team relying on Mamoswine and Gengar having beneficial matchups, and Mamoswine probably will have that more often and be able to provide that breaking role and providing the priority. But when it comes to Crustle, it does give him spikes and stealth rocks, and it gives him a potential winning condition with Cell Smash and potentially a very good tier 5 C captain, or lower tier C captain in general, if he chooses to name one of his higher tier picks as his primary C captain.
And then the Thunders are patching, or actually rounding off the draft with Kyurem, regular Kyurem. So 2 dragon types on this team, and I know you have like a interesting relationship with regular
I have
Kyurem.
very mixed feelings about this mod. I don't know, does it love me or does it hate me? I feel like it hates me a lot because when I face it, I get frozen or credit. When I use it, it gets credit itself. But I cannot still deny that this mod, like the Korean Black, which I love more often to be used, is still very good mod as a tier 3 pick, and in our last round is phenomenal value. Pressure ability can be so annoying with substitute resets, for example. And ice typing is the premier offensive typing, and it has basically all the coverage that Korean Black has, barring the fusion bolt. Yeah, but basically everything else it gets access to, it still has phenomenal bulk, and he has a little bit of dragon spam going on, and both of them at least have secondary stab that they can rely on more often and not get crippled by the terrain.
Then also another dragon here on this team to function besides Zygar, so this allows the Totodile to be either specifically run Zygar 10% as a breaker or Zardax as a breaker and kind of run the other as a sweeper. So in that sense, that's something I like, and maybe even the Auroraville potential of this team will allow Zygar to maybe even get up a Dragon Lance, which like Zygar 10% usually doesn't, because it dies to everything.
And I like the fact that with having dual dragons, this I think works really well in a sense that this thing is usually stopped by bulky water types and grass types especially, or even bulky bug types if those are even a thing that can actually resist ground. Well, Charizard X takes most of those on relatively easily, and in that sense it can be very nice combo to utilize. And Zygarde usually always relies on 1000 arrows, and extreme speed is still very nice priority to have, which he does have some priority on his team with Fake Out Mienshao and Baisha with Sucker Punch, but they aren't most reliable ones. So adding this as another priority option or primary option is still something that definitely gave him a lot of value as a last pick in tier 3.
And then we're going to the Stoutlands picking up Tauros, which in my opinion, like, it's not the best tier 5, but it may be second or third depending on who you ask. And this thing hits really hard, has a good speed tier, so again, the speed on this team is phenomenal. And again, something you have to prep for, which can hit hard.
Yeah, and just sheer force life orb combo with a lot of moves that have secondary effect that get boosted by it and not having to take recall does give Tauros that underrated value out of tier 5, and to match up itself if he's able to bring it, then it does give him a lot of different options. When you look at his team overall, he has a lot of different offensive threats that he can choose from and can really go a long ways when he has to face on every single team throughout the regular season. So I like the fit on the team, and Tauros itself is, like we've been mentioned before, having a nice tier 5 mon that can serve a purpose is really something that I'm a big fan of.
Definitely. And then this team is picking up something which I personally don't tend to do. Like, I'd rather have no fire type than a Rapidash, for example, but it is one of the typings this team still needed, and at least the team won't be pressured too much by hazard removal, because the hazard removal is here already, so rocks are not an issue for this thing.
Yeah, at least in, like you said, like the Stealth Rock's weakness is quite well taken care of, because he has so many hazard removals. I'm not that big of a fan of Rapidash itself in a lot of scenarios, because I don't think fire typing is necessary if you don't end up getting a really good one. And Rapidash, even though it has reliable recovery in Morning Sun, again, it's getting crippled by his potential sand, which are only up like 4 turns, but even still, it can be detrimental when you actually need to go for it. But other than that, somewhat decent mon. I am excited to see if it can do work. And we have to just wait and see. Maybe another Stealth Rocker would have been maybe something that I would have prioritized instead of Rapidash.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Speaking of Stealth Rockers, there's another one for you in Bronzong, and which is kind of amazing that you picked it up in round 11, because as soon as I saw you have Megalopony and Kyurem Black, like, okay, that you still need a steel, so you want a steel type that's not weak to fighting.
I was able to thankfully keep an eye out at that, how many teams already picked their steel type. So I knew immediately that in tier 4 I have Bronzong as a primary target and Resisteel as a secondary target if whatever reason someone happens to pick still Bronzong. So I was able to prioritize a lot of different picks before then, and I knew that if I get this one, it should be very good fit because I need a third stealth rocker, I get another crown immunity, and it's a steel type which you have been mentioning in the past that it's not weak to fight it, which can go a long ways with something like Mega Lopunny and Green Black and relieve the fighting type weakness that I would otherwise have.
Yeah, for sure. So I can see this pick. And then we're rounding off the draft with Mega Trash, aka Mega Bayonet.
The best pick. This is gonna put this team hopefully in the power rankings in number 1 in post-draft, cause this guy went out and drafted himself Mega Bayonet and doesn't give a damn. And I get the fact that many people will say it's the first Mega and there are good arguments to make for it. But I'm always been a fan of this mon design-wise, and I always saw the little upside that it at least have, and hopefully we get to see it able to do. But I believe this team initially wanted the Mega Obama Snow, and that kind of made him draft differently in the later rounds with the Amoonguss, and now ending up with Mega Bayonet. But hey, it's pretty fun way to end up the draft itself with a Mega Bayonet being final pick, and the fact that we are able to see both Mega Obama Snow and Mega Bayonet being drafted, which I didn't think would either of them go in a 10 people draft. And like a fifth part of the team or the draft itself in numbers picked up a plus 80 Mega was definitely a surprise, but very cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. And with that, we are going to move on to all the things that are gonna come to you from the UBL, because we finished the draft with this. These were all the picks, and the draft recaps will be going live tomorrow on the channel of all the coaches. Again, in the chat you can use the exclamation mark with the mascots to get the link to a coach channel. You can also join the UBL Discord, which I'll quickly do all the UBL links in there as well, and actually type it right, UBLs with 1L, not with you. Join the Discord server because all the things are linked in there, all videos will be posted in there, so you can check that out. The post-draft power rankings will be going up February 2nd, which is Wednesday. The power rankings will be done by myself and by Irish Emerald. And then the week 1 battles will go up the 9th, which is the Saturday of next week. And then battles will continue each Saturday, and power rankings will continue on every Wednesday or Thursday. A little bit depending on when me and Irish Emerald can make stuff work. Of course, every single time we are going to aim for Wednesday. But if it doesn't work, it comes up Thursday. If worst comes to worst, Friday, but definitely before the battles of next week will happen, you guys get your power rankings. So, with that, I think that is everything we have.
There is one thing that I do think we need to mention about, which we weren't able to go through, and that's about the sea captaincy.
Yeah.
Do you want to go, Matt, how the rules work? And
yes.
So that fans can remember what they need to watch out for in the draft analysis going tomorrow from each of us.
Yeah, the coaches will reveal all their Z captains, and that basically how this all works is you have to pick a total which adds up to 6 tier-wise. So for example, you pick a tier 1 with a tier 5, you pick a tier 2 with a tier 4, or 2 tier 3s. Now of course it is possible to go lower than that, so let's say I have a tier 3 and a tier 4 because I really like my tier 4 better than my tier 3. That is all fine, it's just not that you can grab 2... for example, in your case, you cannot be like, hey, check me out, I have a Lander T and a Kieran Black, and they are both gonna Z your ass.
Can I have those? It would have made my choice a lot easier if I could have.
Yeah, I know I would have, but that's definitely not what we're about to do.
I wanted to remind that because I remember we mentioned about early on the stream and I wanted to go through later on. So keep an eye out for all of the draft analysis, which will be going up tomorrow, hopefully, from every single one of us. I know mine is already ready to go. And hopefully every single one of us do remember to mention those sea captains. And if we don't, ask about them in comment section below to make sure that which ones though will be.
Yes, for sure. And with that, of course, we also have the final things we need to go over about before going end of the stream. So again, as I said, subscribe to all the coaches. Their links are in the Discord server, and you can actually get them in the channel as well if you type the exclamation mark with the team mascot or something. And then of course subscribe to all the to the UBL channel. Of course, this will be uploaded there along with the power rankings, which will go up. The UBL on Twitter at UBL Pokemon, so you can follow what's happening there. The Discord is on the screen and in the chat right now. And of course you can follow the season at draftleague.nl as well, so be sure to tune in on that as well. I just made sure that everything is now live so the draft wouldn't be spoiled, so you can now go there and also check out the Z Captains if you want to know it a little bit early before the things go on. But anything, with that, I want to thank Vepsis for being around with this stream as well. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it, and thank you for having me, and thank you everyone who have been around. Unfortunately, we didn't have too much time to really respond to the comments on the stream, but thank you regardless for being able to be around and be really active in there too. And hopefully everyone who watched this later on the YouTube channel also enjoyed, and leave a comment if you are able to have the time also throughout there.
Definitely, so nothing I can add to that too much. So thank you guys for watching and for being active, of course, in the chat. During the whole stream, I think we had around like 25 viewers the whole time, which is definitely great for a league that's still growing, and for myself, the channel that's still growing as well, or streaming this. So definitely great there. Thank you guys for coming out, and I hope you guys will have an awesome day and will enjoy the UBL content tomorrow. So be sure to watch out for that.